Good morning, amen.
Good morning and welcome to MEATA's 2021 Fall Hybrid Conference. A little housekeeping items for in-person attendees: coffee, water, and tea in the back of the room. Restrooms are out the conference doors and to your right. And anyone here in person seeking sketches, please fill out the form at the MEATA registration table. For our virtual conference attendees, please mute your mic. Please participate by raising your hand in the chat. And if you're seeking sketches as well, please type your name in the chat and we will send you that link. And now I'd like to introduce our MEATA president, Mr. Kevin Green. Kevin Green joined Focus Hope in 2001 after a long career in manufacturing. Kevin led a team that developed and deployed a modular manufacturing system in 2003. In this role, he served with the military forces in support of Operation Iraqi Enduring Freedom. Kevin Green was elected president of MEATA in 2019. He assumed his current role as program manager of the Machinist Training Institute, MTI, in March of 2020. He is responsible for all industrial and construction readiness training, apprenticeship intermediary services, and pre-apprenticeship programming. Kevin is also a lifelong resident of Detroit and studied the machine tool trades at Henry Ford College. And now I'd like to welcome Mr. Kevin Green to the podium.
Good morning, MEATA members. Good morning for those who are attending in person, and good morning to our virtual attendees. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our first ever hybrid conference and to this year's MEATA Fall Conference. We have a full agenda for you today with a couple of sketches. But first, I'd like to ask that you all stand so that we can recognize this great nation. As is the tradition of MEATA, want to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you so much. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Be seated, and thank you so much to our virtual attendees. Michigan Educators Apprenticeship and Training Association is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to providing a forum for professional development, educators, secondary and post-secondary, and other individuals involved in providing apprenticeships and other forms of work-based training. Since its founding, MEATA has been a vocal advocate for expanding the use of work-based learning as the most cost-effective and least costly means of transferring generational knowledge from one generation to another. This organization is probably best known for what we're doing today. Our conferences bring folks together. We're so happy and gracious for our partners at Kirkland Community College for hosting this ceremony today, for hosting this event today. It is really nice to break the COVID and come together in person. Dr. Quinn, our partner here, I want to welcome to the podium for a few welcoming words. Dr. Quinn, thank you so much for hosting this event.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kevin. I just very simply welcome to Kirtland Community College. Make yourself at home. I believe I'm on the agenda for approximately 1 o'clock to give the people who are in person here a tour of the facility, so you'll be able to see the rest of this. For all of you, this is a new campus. And we are kind of, at a college that's very innovative in transition. I would be remiss here to not introduce a couple of our employees here and just mention the work of our other employees. First of all, Kathleen Fox is in the back of the room here, our Workforce and Development and Apprenticeship Director here. And we have to mention Jake back here is one of our technicians that's supporting us here. And so on behalf of these two employees and the rest of the employees here, I'm very proud of them and the work they do here because they keep this college in the forefront of being a distinctive institution. I also would be a little bit remiss to say I want to thank Cameron and Annette here. So they're here in person here. They've been great to work with here and with myself and my assistant Gina here and kind of figuring out how we can best serve you and how we can provide a nice conference here. So on behalf of the institution, the Board of Trustees and our employees here, thanks everybody for coming. Make yourself at home. Hope this is profitable. If there's anything we can do, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Quinn, for having us here. I can tell you, the folks who are not here in person, that this is a beautiful campus. I am very impressed about the new additions to the campus. MEATA members, let's get started. First, we're bringing to you our State Director of Apprenticeships. Oftentimes needs no introduction for those who are involved in apprenticeships. A household name in registered apprenticeships in Michigan and throughout the United States. The moderator for our first panel, join me in welcoming Russ Davis, Michigan State Director of Apprenticeships.
Thanks, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Quinn and his team for hosting this event in this beautiful facility. For all of you, I've had an opportunity to watch this facility being built. Been up here many times with Dr. Quinn and Kathleen with meetings. And I believe probably our last meeting was maybe in the spring of this year when we were having a meeting. Dr. Quinn says, come on, we're gonna go see what they're doing at the other end of the facility. And so we did not go through the facility. We went through about 2 foot of snow out the door, out in the cold, out and around. But it's just a wonderful facility up here, and the occupations that are being offered here. We actually just a stone throw from here. We've got a registered apprenticeship with a big company that really got this thing to where I was being involved here. And so I want to thank everybody here for hosting this. We're very fortunate here in Michigan that we've got MEATA. I believe this is probably my 22nd year, I believe, of being involved in MEATA. I believe I started when I went to Delta College. About my first time was 1999, I think. And then I'm a past chair, vice chair, worked close with Annette, worked as a chair, vice chair with her. Janine, Ernie, and I spent many years together. And I think the beauty behind what MEATA at the beginning was, MEATA was just about the community colleges and the UAW in the early days, talking about registered apprenticeship. But fortunately, we've expanded the way we need to because of the apprentices and what is needed here. The other arm that we're so blessed with that other states aren't, so we have MASI, Michigan Apprentice Steering Committee, the other arm with the construction trades and the businesses. And so between the both of them, we do send a great message for expanding registered apprenticeship. When I started 10 years ago, we had about 6,500 apprentices. I had ATRs, apprentice training reps, Bay City, Detroit, Lansing, Battle Creek. Today, we've got 18,334 registered apprentices, and we have 2 ATRs in Detroit and 1 in Battle Creek. I want to thank everybody here today, as you're the ones here, not only here, but those on the Zoom or the call that have helped expand the numbers that we have today, because without everybody here driving this expansion, we couldn't do it. You are the voice, the construction trades, the community colleges, the online, each and every one of you play a role in how we're expanding it. And truly, when I was with Dr. Quinn way back in the springtime, I said, we need to have a meeting up here so that we have people know here what's going on. And so thank you very much. The other successes that we have got that currently they're helping our expansions, our youth apprenticeship, and I know Scott's going to talk about that when he gets up there. But if we look at what Access for All, the MC3 program, the Career Connection, Focus Hope, Youth Build, Job Corps, just to mention a few that are working hard at helping diversity, women, minorities, people with barriers, and all those in the pre and the pre-apprenticeship program to have a direct entry into registered apprenticeship. Our goals are all the same, people, to expand registered apprenticeship. 80 plus years ago, President Franklin Roosevelt signed into law the National Apprenticeship System. The signing of the act was known as the Fitzgerald Act in honor of its author, Congressman William Fitzgerald, setting the motion the opportunity that some 80 plus years later has offered millions of U.S. workers a chance to use the earn while you learn strategy to prepare for careers in industries that have helped drive the American economy and support countless American families in efforts to reach the middle class and live the American dream. But as you know, we still have challenges and remain apprenticeships can help address our nation's skills gap. As everybody knows, we're looking for workers, but yet when we start talking about registered apprenticeship programs, high wage, high skilled jobs, those jobs are filled. We have little turnover, and those folks that turn out as journey workers go on to be our next process engineers. They go on to get a 2-4 year education in our leaders in our entrepreneur companies here in Michigan. Nearly 6.1 million jobs are unfilled. 8 million workers are lacking necessary credentials. Our student debt is still surpasses over $1 trillion in the average college student debt. And I want to tell you, part of this speech that I'm reading this morning is when the last time I gave it was in 2019. And I know these numbers are bad because I know that the average college debt is over $26,000. I think that average college debt is probably near the 6 figures. 61% of our employers are facing challenge filling skilled worker vacancies. I had an opportunity to have dinner last night, and we were talking about how companies are going and moving right straight. If you've got the skill set into that employer and training journey worker in house or getting a journey worker card, if you have those skill sets, the General Motors, Ford, Chrysler are crying for journey workers. And at one time, I believe we were having baby boomers that were retiring at 10,000 people a day. Now that seems like a really a far-fetched number, but I think we're probably getting close to that. And for those new on here, you know, our core apprenticeship components have not changed, and industry still leads the charge. Employers are the foundation of every apprenticeship program and lead apprenticeship selection, curriculum design, and program operation. And when we let our industry tell us what they need, we need to listen. We turn out some excellent programs. Apprenticeship's a job with a paid work component. The beauty behind that, earn while you learn, the other 4-year degree, is that when that apprenticeship starts from day one, they're getting 50–60% of their wages. The goal of the federal government right now is to bring youth programs into the RA, whether we do that through STRA, School to Raise Your Apprenticeship, work-based learning. Currently, Michigan, I would say, is probably one of the leaders when we look at Jackson area. We've got, I think 30-some high school students in our STRA program. And they've been around for quite some time. Years ago, when we had a tax credit in Michigan years ago, we had over 300 STRAs. I currently just started one in a thumb in Reese with a gentleman. And this program is unique because it ties in the Careers Tech Center at Tuscola, and it also ties in Delta College. The students is dual enrolled. By the time this student graduates, he's going to end up with a DOL certificate. Currently working up in the thumb in Michigan. I don't know how many of you ever been up in that thumb area up around Port Hope, Huron County, but that's one of the flattest areas in Michigan. And actually, up there, you can watch your dog run away for 2 days before you won't see him. That's how flat it is. But we're working with 13 potential sponsors up there of starting some kind of work-based learning or STRAs up there. Unique to that area is a farming community and also a high advanced manufacturing area. The bottom line, the employers driving the school district also. When you have the employers come to the school and say, this is what we need to be offered, and the articulation between the school districts and the community college is a key to that direct entry for our apprenticeship. I told you I wrote this 2 years ago, and I look at my notes. 2 years ago, we had about $20 million federal dollars in federal grants to expand registered apprenticeship. I want to say today it's upwards into the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, Michigan has been a recipient of many dollars to expand registered apprenticeship. I've always said that it was when we do apprenticeships, we've got 1,079 sponsors right now in our program, and 18,334 apprentices. And as you know, we've all suffered through this COVID somewhat. And when we go through a pandemic or a recession, generally speaking, employment suffers anywhere from 10 to 15%. And we had aspirations of being close to way over 700,000 registered apprentices by now, but we slipped a bit. In 2019, we had almost 21,000 registered apprentices in Michigan. Today, you heard me say 18,000 something. In 2019, we did 92 new programs. Last year, we did 48, and we were still one of the leaders across the United States for each state. Completers, in 2019, we had 8,400. Last year, we had 5,723, and we feel pretty darn good about that. The reason that we feel good about that is because of what we've done as a team. I'm talking about the Leo team, the community colleges, the articulations with the high schools, our partners in the CTE, the Jenny Genos across the state of Michigan. They're helping us help the pre-apprenticeship program. That is what's driving these numbers. One of the areas that we've expanded in the last 2 years in spite of what's been going on is our healthcare. We've got a very successful program down in the Detroit area with healthcare. We got a very successful program over in Western Michigan with healthcare. In these two facilities, and we're looking at other areas right now, but what we've done is with 1,300 occupations, we've given the employers an opportunity to change these time-based programs to a competency-based program. Competency-based programs give the employer an opportunity to take a 2-year program, and maybe when they put the competencies together, if I'm a quick study, maybe I'm going to complete that in 15, 16, 17 months with a 2-year program. If I'm not so quick, maybe I'm still at that 2-year mark. The other part of doing this competency type programs, and I'm going to get into the hybrid next because that's where some of our construction trades are going, is the part of it is that those competencies for the on-the-job training pertain to the said business. When I have a tool maker in Grayling, Michigan, may not look like a tool maker in Frankenmuth, Michigan, for so to speak. Same goes with the ME program or hospitality, any of them. But what we found out during COVID here, folks, we've learned so much about Zoom and Microsoft Teams, Google. 2 years ago, I didn't have the foggiest, and now all of us in this room know all about what we have to do to make the business work. The construction trades had to too, because work still went on. And I've met many, many times with our partners, training coordinators, to find out what they're doing. And I know the community colleges have to do the same thing. And that's why I bring up that word hybrid. And the federal government figured that out a long time ago, that maybe that hybrid might be something that works just a little bit better than just a time-based or competency-based. And what I'm saying is, there's so many times in our instruction that we can be in front of a computer and do so much of this work on our own. And with our skilled trades, darn near half of that work is in a lab. And we can be proctored, maybe in a field by an expert, or back in the lab where we're social distancing. Lo and behold, when I get together with my training partners, we did get together a couple times in a pavilion out in the country close to my house. I listened to what they had to say as far as how they made their training successful. And truthfully, I think I'm in the horse and buggy days compared to what they're doing today, because if you're not up to speed, you better get up to speed or you're going to be left behind. And what's happened is our apprentices are still learning. They're still progressing well. And so anyway, this is exactly where we have to go, even during these times. So when I was talking to you about the quality of the programs that we do, the success rate we have, and also about how few apprentices that we have that get suspended. I think last year when we had 18,000 some apprentices, we had like, I don't know, 40, 50 suspensions at the most. There's a reason for that. because our apprentices attain that level that where we've set the bar. In the 3 R's that I have for apprenticeship are this: the rigor. The rigor is the work process that the business have set for that. The relevance is the related training instruction. We don't send students to 144 clock hours of schooling for the sake of it. We actually are sending for the whys and how that's going to relate to that job. And the last are the most important relationships, what we develop in that classroom and on the job in the communities. When we look over these resumes for those apprentices of the year and we look and see what they've done, not only on the job, but in the communities to help make the communities better. And that's probably the part that we're missing right now because of the COVID, because we're not together. And this is great today that we are. How much more time have I got? So Albert Einstein said this: learn from yesterday, live for today, hope for tomorrow, and the important thing is not to stop questioning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Russ. We'll hear a lot going forward. Next, we're going to have a panel discussion. And we'll break just a moment to cue the slide and seat the panel. The first panelist, please take a seat here. While we're queuing up the panel discussion, I want to take some time to thank the MEATA Executive Board for what they do and to introduce the Executive Board. Both the sitting board and the outgoing board.
What slide are we showing here? See that thing? It's not the title slide, no. Oh, the PDF, okay.
Worked with Annette Norris for a number of years, throughout the years. I think it's about 6 years. I'm not sure if she is my right-hand person or if I am hers. But I want to thank you publicly, Annette, for all that you do for MEATA and for all that you've done throughout the years to promote apprenticeships throughout the state of Michigan. Annette Norris is the treasurer, the current treasurer of the Michigan Educators and Apprenticeship Training Association. Thank you, Annette. Joining us via Zoom is our Vice President, Deb Schultz. Deb has served in a variety of roles in this organization and continues to be a staple for what we need and probably a Swiss Army knife of everything that MEATA needs. Thank you so much. Round of applause for Deb Schultz. Joining the MEATA board and has Cameron Albring has always been a pleasure to work with and is serving currently as the secretary for MEATA for all things MEATA needs. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything that you do for the organization, and thank you for being an example to all. Joining us via Zoom is our business and labor representative, Jamal L. From the Regional Carpenters. Thank you so much for everything that you do, Jamal. New to the MEATA board and a secondary representative, Mark Pagliano. Mark has brought a new perspective to the MEATA discussion. And I think that his skills will be very valuable going forward for the organization. Thank you so much, Mark. Unable to join us today is Laura Theo. Laura is serving as the post-secondary representative. The previous board added 2 board positions to make sure that MEATA and the voice of MEATA is heard in the state level and in the federal level. These new positions are being occupied by our partners at the Michigan Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, get that right? So we're happy to welcome to the MEATA board, Scott Yetney. I have a great team behind him, and Callan Eschenberg is also with us today, and Callan has meant so much to this organization. We added another position, and we're so proud to have Russ Davis representing the U.S. Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship on the MEATA board. Listen, MEATA members and those who have served on the MEATA board, we're always in the meeting and we wonder, I wonder what Russ would think. And we're so glad now that he's here. Russ has been instrumental in setting up this entire conference. And again, a household name in apprenticeships. Thank you, Russ, for everything that you meant to the state. I also say that Russ is a past president of MEATA and has been a mentor of myself. Thank you so much. Also, I want to again thank the entire team from Kirtland Community College. Gina is with us here today. Gina, we really appreciate you've been such a gracious host, and there is a lot of work that has been put into this conference. For those of you who are not here, there's a beautiful spread. We're going to have a great lunch and tour. Back to the podium to introduce the panelists for our first hour of discussion, the State Director of Apprenticeship, Russ Davis.
Kevin. So I can't take credit for this. I've been part of this for the last couple of years. We have tried to figure out how to get our voices and what our training coordinators, how to start apprenticeships out to the community. And we had a lady, maybe some of you know her, Anne Marie Bukowski, who now works for the Saginaw ISD, I believe, but I've known Anne since way back in the day when she was with a construction company, Heinemann, back when I was at Delta College, and very, very supportive of registered apprenticeship. And so Anne came to us and said, we want to start having panelists and to go out. And we've actually, we just did a panel in a church in Saginaw here just not even a month ago. And we've been to churches, we've been to the CTE centers, we've been to Frankenmuth, to the community. In fact, wherever we've had a panel like this, now they're asking for us back, because when we have those panels, not only do we have the parents, but we're having students too, and it's a full house. And so I thought when we were talking about putting this conference together, I said I think it would be a great idea for the community and for those voices up here at Kirtland to hear what we're doing down there, because I think this same, we call it the road show, can go any place in Michigan to hear how we set these apprenticeships up. And we have to look at the apprenticeships by the community you're in and what will work. So with that, I would like to introduce Going to give each panelist 5 to 8 minutes to talk about their trade, but also we brought another person in there. I think it's very, very important as apprenticeship of the year, Sarah Olney from the UAW. And so when we get down there, she's going to actually talk about her role and how she got to where she's at today. And I think that's really, really important. So with that, I would like to start with our first guest, Howard Hypes, Local 2 Bricklayer Training Apprenticeship Coordinator. Howard.
Thank you, Russ. Good morning, everyone. And this is unique to be on a conference that's both video streamed at the same time, so it's exciting today. Our apprenticeship program covers the entire state of Michigan for 5 crafts. So it's not just one particular craft. So when we say bricklayers, it's also allied craft workers. So we have 5 programs, brick, block, and stone, and refractory. So going into kilns like Zug Island and laying fire brick in there is also a part of bricklaying, as well as building new and constructing new buildings. That's one program. And then we have another that is tile, marble, terrazzo. So it has to do with floor and wall coverings, and we train students in that program to, for example, a lot of casino work, actually, because they're doing a lot of time in those structures. Colleges, we just had a tile class for journeymen and apprentices as an upgrade class. Gauge porcelain tile. The tile is 3.5 feet by 11 feet. One piece of tile. So you don't just grab it and throw it on the wall. You have to have special equipment to be able to do that, suction cups and everything, and it's a little bit tricky. So that's another craft that we teach. Also, we have concrete finishing. So we do floors and vertical walls in concrete. And then masonry restoration. Most of the buildings in the United States are 1900, built around 1900. And it's much more economical to just restore a building than it is to actually build a new one. And plus you're keeping the history of the area. So we train students in how to restore masonry historically and, according to the time period. And then, for example, the Detroit Central Station is ongoing right now, and a lot of work being done there. We built the first Guastafino domes built in Michigan in the last 120 years in our training center in Warren. We did a mock-up there. And so we brought people in that go all over the world, training people how to rebuild Guastafino domes. And we built a new one there as a mock-up, and our apprentices got a hand in that. And I was fortunate enough to be there that day, and I even laid a couple of tile on that. So that is another program, and then that we have, and then also plastering. So just realize when you talk to anybody about one of the union skilled trades programs, it's not just one thing. And you'll find that out in all of these crafts. There's a lot of avenues for students and adults to go in. Applying's easy to our program. You just go to the website, it says apply now right in the middle of the page. Click that, upload your documents. You have to be at least 17, high school diploma, GED, ACT work keys, level 5 for math, and 4 on the other 2 aspects of that. So it's relatively easy to apply. We do interviews regularly, and we're training well over 120 new apprentices per year annually, not including the ongoing training that's going on. So a lot of expansion, and I don't see an end to it because we are in the midst of the silver tsunami, where everybody that's a baby boomer is leaving, including me, within 5 years. And, you know, we're bringing a lot of people on, we're elevating apprentices, a lot of opportunities. Apprentices are even, you know, dabbling with running small projects. There's so much of a need for not somebody, not just a body, but somebody that can, has ambition and wants to step up. So thank you very much. I think I'm about out of my time. I actually stayed on time this time. The last panel I did not. So I'll conclude.
Thanks, Howard. Appreciate it. Our next guest is from Local 324, the operating engineers from Howell, Michigan, Mark Zinser.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Russ. Howard said I'm Mark Zenzer. I'm from the operating engineers, actually a 32-year member, and Howard was just talking about baby boomers. I'm one of those, so I'm looking like about a year from now. So a little bit about the operating engineers. If you go on these road projects, you see all the heavy equipment going. Those are us. Your buildings going up with the cranes and stuff, that's our guys too. I kind of call ourselves a kind of a service trade because some of the times a lot of the other trades can't do their work without us. We currently have 4 training centers in the state of Michigan. We have one up in Gladstone. We have one in Grand Rapids. We have one in Detroit. And then our big one is in Howell, Michigan. It's 550 acres. We just put a huge addition onto it last year just because of the numbers of our apprentices going out. I know when I came there to work some 19 years ago, I think we had like 50, 60 apprentices. 9 years ago, they put me on as a apprentice coordinator. We were at 120, and this year we're at 450. So we have 2 divisions or 3 divisions. The big that you can come into the apprenticeship. There's the civil side, which is basically your dirt equipment, your bulldozers, your excavators, your hoisting side, which is the cranes, forklifts, and then we have a mechanics program. To get an application, if you go online to oe324.org, it's pretty simple. You just got to have a high school diploma, GED, a valid driver's license. You have to be 17 years of age. And then you also have to have the work keys. The program is 6,000 hours. Out of that 6,000, this is for the hoisting and civil side. 6,000 hours. Out of that 6,000 hours, they have to do a minimum of 200 hours a year. And with all the certifications that are required now, I always, when I sign a new apprentice up, I tell them it's probably going to take you 240 hours to get done what you need to get done. We have a lot of apprentices that put 800-900 hours a year in the training. On the mechanic side, that's a 4-year program, and that's 8,000 hours. And they also have to do 200 hours of training also. Wages, they're starting out at about 70% of what a journeyman makes. So if you were to take a first-year apprentice on one of these road jobs, they're starting out at about $22.41. And then you got to add about $23 worth of benefits in there, your health care, your pensions, and so forth. And then every 1,000 hours, they get a 5% raise until they get up there to journeyman's rate. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Russ. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Our next guest is from the UAW, Steve Long.
Morning, everybody. I'm Steve Long. I'm the national co-lead of the UAW General Motors Apprenticeship Program. I serve under the direction of Vice President Terry Dittus in General Motors Department. My partner in crime on the General Motors side is a gentleman named Brett Rusterfield. He apologized for not being able to come up today. He was extended the invitation, just things are really busy in his world these days. And then of course with us today is Sarah Olney. She's out of UAW Local 659, Flint Tool and Die, just recently graduated die maker apprentice. And a lot has gone on in our program, a lot of structural changes. We're in the process now of moving to national program standards, which is different. We have apprentices all over the country, from Arlington to Spring Hill, Tennessee to Fairfax, Kansas. So we've got quite a mix. For the most part, our apprentices right now, 90% of them are electrical apprentices. And that's to compensate for about a 15-year gap where UAW GM did not put on any apprentices at all. So we're kind of behind the curve. But as we brought our program back up online, we began to come to the realization that the nature of our equipment and the world of advanced manufacturing and the investment that would be required to train these apprentices, we began to consolidate our training. So at the Warren Tech Center in Warren, Michigan, we're building what we're calling the Global Technical Learning University, because at this training center, we've got students coming in from China, from Indonesia, from Mexico, from South America. So they'll be coming to Warren for the training classes, and it's the same classes that our apprentices are currently going through. That's not to discourage those in the education community, because in the UAW, we've got 2,500 different agreements that we service. And the majority of those are smaller locations. Lear Seating up here in Roscommon is one of those, and they have apprenticeship programs. So as GM, Ford, and Chrysler have had to consolidate our training for the classroom portion of our apprenticeship, that's due to the nature of the manufacturing. Right now, our electrical apprentices are going through 720 total hours of classroom training as they go through their apprenticeship. So it's pretty extensive. It's all in the area of advanced robotics, programmable logic controls, VFD drives, vision systems. If you walk into an assembly plant of today, it's hard to see a human being. If you go into a Flint truck there off of Van Slake, you go drive right by it as you're coming north and south on 75. It's over 1 million square feet, and there's only 300 people in there working body assembly. Now, a plant that size 20 years ago would have had 12 to 1,400 people per shift working in that. But because of the level that we've got, some of those automated cells can run completely autonomous without any human interaction. But when they break down, we've got to have highly qualified apprentices and journeymen to get to those problems. One of the fundamental changes that we've had in our program is the old test and interview process that was conducted. I think, Sarah, I think you went through that when she went. So just recently, we've gotten away from that because the test interview process became very subjective, location by location. So we've gone to what's called a skilled trades apprenticeship readiness certificate, or a START program. So what we ask people to do if they want to get into the GM apprenticeship program is to go through these classes. Now, right now, we're only working through one provider, but we have every intent of rolling this out. So any college could provide this program, because not everybody is keen to online distance learning or can stay focused on that. So there's 4 classes that go with that. And everybody that wishes to get into our program will take those 4 classes. And it's a basic shop math class, algebra 101. There's a print reading class, and then a class of industrial readiness, which is essentially spatial relations and mechanical reasoning. They complete those 4 classes with a 70% or better. We put them on a list at the end of the year. We compile those lists. They get a form to fill out. They tell us where they want to go and what skill classifications they're most interested in participating in. If they wish to go to one of our engineering centers, which is Milford Proving Grounds, Warren Tech Center, Pontiac PTO, these are more engineering jobs, metal model makers, product development type occupations. They have to score 80% or better in that START program in order to be eligible for those positions, because the education and the training and what goes into that is a little bit more of a higher demand. And where Sarah's at the Tool and Die Center in Flint, that also requires an 80%, because that's the only remaining die build center we've got in North America. And as a part of that, and Sarah, you're probably hearing this for the first time, the Tool and Die Center in Flint is going to be a national, what we're going to call the Die Maker College, because it's the remaining die making center we've got in the country. All of our apprentices from all over the country come to Flint, and we put them in a hotel for anywhere from 90 to 120 days at a time. And they go and they spend time on the floor there at the Flint Tool and Die Center and learn how to build dies from the ground up. We try to time that so that the dies that they're working on are going to be those dies that are going back to their plant. So if we're working on hood and fender dies for the next product, the Escalade, we try to bring those apprentices that are currently in Arlington Assembly to come up and work on those dies and learn how they go together. So there just been a ton of fundamental changes in the way we do our program. We're expanding the training center there in Warren for our mechanical trades, machine repair, tool maker, die maker, for other areas, because they're going to have to learn some in pneumatics and hydraulics and automation. So some of the die maker apprentices will also go there. Pipe fitter and millwright, so rigging safety, all of those things are going to be put in place there. We're going to be up to about 36,000 square feet at the Warren Technical Center. Anybody that's driven by there lately, the construction trades are busy. There's a lot of expansion going on. A lot of things are happening. It's all good stuff, but it's all to prepare us for the electric vehicle that's on the pipeline. GM is very serious about being fully electric by 2035. And they've already got plans to turn Flint and Fort Wayne Assembly, the big truck plants in the United States, into electric vehicle plants. And then Oshawa plant in Canada will take over the internal combustion engine for the truck platform as we move forward. So they're very, very serious about this, but in doing so, it's going to create a lot of structural changes within the company. And of course, we're going to have to respond to that on our training side with our apprentices, with the way we do that. Body assembly will still be there, and a lot of the undercarriage will still be there, but how vehicles are assembled and what goes into them and the safety aspects of working on an electric vehicle is going to change our world dramatically and very, very quickly. So we have to be able to respond quickly in our training, and hopefully we're moving in the right direction with everything that's going on. Huge investments from General Motors. A lot of it's been triggered on poor launch cycles. They sat back and they looked at vehicle launches, and it was in the hundreds of billions of dollars, and not being able to meet launch targets and things like that. So that was also one of the driving factors for us to standardize and consolidate our training. And plus the nomadic capability of our trades. It's not uncommon for a skilled tradesperson to start off in Flint and move to Arlington and go to Wentzville and work in 4 or 5 different locations throughout their career. So for us to standardize the training as we standardize our equipment, our delivery would only make sense for us. So a lot of good stuff going on, a lot of scary things on the horizon, but we hope we're doing the right thing as far as the way we train up the next generation. As Howard said, the silver tsunami is coming. It's part of what's going on. I believe 85% of the die makers in Sarah's plant can retire today. They're sticking around because they want to do the right thing and training up the next generation and the way we do things. And that's pretty common. I think we can lose across the board. We could lose 65 to 70% of our tradesmen right now. They've all hit that magic age of 62 and a half. And a lot of them are just sticking around because they want to see the next generation be able to thrive. So they want to be able to turn over those skill sets, share their knowledge, and share what they know for the next generation. So it's a good thing that's happening, but we're also running up against a time crunch because these guys are going to go one way or the other in the next couple of years, as Howard said. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Steve. I think it's important that we hear from the experts on how and what's happening in the trades, in the new technology, not only on the standpoint for the high schools and CTE centers, but for the colleges, and how we can prepare our youth to go into these trades. Now, as you heard Steve say, you heard them all say that preparatory we can do, but that expertise knowledge is done in their schools. I think it's important to realize that it's not the days of driving a bulldozer with the handles anymore, but when you get into that bulldozer, you've got to know computers, and you're going to set that grade to within a 1/16 of an inch to go down 75 and make that new highway, and so I believe that's probably been the biggest aspect of parents and students that have listened to these panel shows. Just as wow, they need this knowledge. It's not a matter of students saying, guess what, I'm not going to school anymore, I'll just go and I'll lay brick, or I'll be operating engineer or whatever. But no, you need to have that capability of learning at this level right here. And so the next guest I have is a great friend of mine, has been in charge of the apprenticeship programs in Delta College, and they down there in the Saginaw Valley. We've been blessed to have numerous businesses that have registered apprenticeships. Harvey Snyder.
Thank you, Russ. So Steve gave me several great segues to follow up on. So in all fairness, I was a GM employee for 35 years. I worked for General Motors. And during that time, I was the local apprentice rep and then apprentice chair. So I was on the apprentice committee. And we did things the old way as far as our testing and interviewing. So it's really exciting to see that GM and UAW is kind of changing that up. Because it is very subjective when it comes to interview. Not that the questions were all the same, but how an interviewer perceived the answers. One of the other things that's a great segue is when they talked about the tsunami of grain. I am a little older, so I am ready to step away. Howard said, what, 4 more years? I'm not gonna make it 4 more years. And that is why I have McGill sitting here to my right, because he will be the future of skilled trades at Delta. If they follow my suggestions, which once I retire, who knows what they'll do. So the other segue, Steve mentioned Lear in Roscommon, and that is one of the companies that we service at Delta College with apprenticeships. So while the trades run their own training schools, as a community college, we kind of pick up the others. So that's not to say we only offer apprenticeships to non-union companies, although some of our apprentices come from non-union side, but some of them come from union companies. We used to have, in good old days, hundreds of GM employees, because if you're not familiar where Delta College is, it's located kind of in the center of Saginaw Bay, Midland counties. And there's a lot of manufacturing, and there used to be a lot of GM plants in that area. And over the years, we've had to adjust and change because GM has closed plants. And that's, McGill will talk about his role right now with the college and how we're expanding apprenticeships in our area. But we do offer for companies in our area, and when I say our area, it's, again, don't think just Saginaw Bay, Midland. I have apprentices that come to Delta from a 14-county area. I like to say all the way from Elma to Ubley, from Genesee up to Roscommon, and a variety of manufacturers, from the small tool and die shop with, you know, might be 2 employees. Dad is running the machines in the garage and mom is doing the books, and Junior comes along and dad says, I'm gonna make him my apprentice. So he starts a program. To companies like Dow Chemical. So we cover big companies, little companies. What Delta does is put their curriculums together. A lot of times I'll get asked, are these curriculums, training programs approved by the Department of Labor? And I can smile and say, yeah, Russ Davis wrote most of them, so I think they're approved. I don't ever have to worry about that. But I work very closely with the apprentice training rep in our area. If somebody wants to start a new program or change a curriculum and add classes, we do that for them. We customize that. And then as a community college, we help companies get their students admitted to the college. So we handle the paperwork and walk it through admissions. We get them into the college. We put together the curriculum with the company, and then we make recommendations. I make the recommendations. McGill's helping me now with, okay, next semester, here's the classes your apprentices ought to be in. Because I know the schedule. I know when classes run, when they are offered, as far as fall, winter, spring. Sometimes a class only gets offered once a year. So I want to make sure an apprentice gets that. Because if they, for some reason, and it happens, a student says, well, I don't want to take a class in the fall. Well, I know that's the only fall is the only semester we offer this certain class. And if they don't take it in the fall, then it's going to be a whole other year before it's even offered. And if they're in the third year of their apprenticeship, sometimes they come back and say, well, I gotta have this class to graduate. And it's like, I told you, you should have taken it last fall. You should be in it right now. Don't wait. So those are some of the things we do. We notify the Department of Labor when they complete their related technical instruction, their RTI is done. We maintain contact with a company as far as students, their attendance. We have them sign information release forms so we can let the company know their grades, whether or not they're in class. And I'm probably forgetting something, so I'm going to turn it over to Miguel and he'll get you caught up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Miguel Atkinson, skilled trades recruiter for Delta, as Harvey mentioned. My background is in tool and die. I come from the semiconductor industry, which is, it's a whole nother avenue when it comes to trades. A lot of people have this mindset that trades are dirty or greasy or facilities are old. The area that I come from, you could eat off the floor of. It was actually silicon carbide, and it is an extremely high technology, high precision type of field. I could go to work just like this, and I think a lot of people have a hard time associating that with trades anymore. I also work directly with some folks at the Department of Labor, Michigan Works, helping with grant information getting to our employers, as well as area high schools, area employers. There's a lot of people that go into the workforce thinking they're getting a registered apprenticeship, end up with a journeyman's card. After 4 years, they realize it's not registered, and it kind of puts them in a rough position when they try to further their career. Another aspect that I'm very fortunate of is I was one of the products of early education with trades. I went to Bay Aranac ISD and pursued the machining program. I began machining at S.E. Johnson when I was 16 years old. So I got a jump start on a lot of people. Started my career young. I was very fortunate in it and pursued an associate's degree. Ended up teaching at Delta College for 7 years and moved into this role. So trades open up a lot of doors. The relationships you make, as Russ was stating in his kind of opening comments there, with the relationships, the instructor that I had in high school at Bay Aranac is the person who set me up with my first job at S.E. Johnson, with my second job at Dow Corning, teaching at Delta College, and now into this role. So that one relationship just opened all the doors in my career.
Thanks, Miguel. I think, can you bring the slide back up? I think that's part of what this panel is all about, is hearing these roadmaps, and each one of our roadmap is a little bit different. Back in the day when I started my apprenticeship, I had an uncle that when I was 17 said, you need to be a tool maker and go through a registered apprenticeship. And I was on a farm milking cows. I didn't even know what a tool maker. I thought maybe they're gonna make hammers and screwdrivers from being a country boy, you know. But lo and behold, I wrote the UAW GM test, and I don't know who helped me write that test, but 32 days later, I was an apprentice. And the thing is, we do need the relationships. We need those folks telling us, giving us advice, because a lot of what we're learning or we don't learn in school are affecting a lot of folks. And so that's where all of us are fitting in to get voice across to what these different occupations are. The other part of it, and you see what's on the screen right now, I saved this. I this morning early, I got an email from my boss in Chicago. It talks about Women's Bureau webinar, which is next week. We have a shortage of women and minorities in the skilled trade, and we have groups that are working very, very hard to bring these numbers up. We have very successful women in these trades. I've been speaking in the UP, I think, for 10 years to the Apprentice of the Year award up there in January, February, and I think this year it's going to be January 8th. And I believe out of the last, Mark, you helped me, last 3 or 4 years, we've had a couple of ladies that have taken one of the high awards the last 5 years.
We, just last year and like 3 years before that.
Yep.
Yep.
And in any way, it's amazing. Back in the day when I was a tool maker at the Flint engine plant, we had several ladies that were tool makers there. But today we're honored to have Sarah Olney here from Flint, who was the recipient of the Apprentice of the Year last year for our Massey Award. And the reason I wanted to bring Sarah on this panel is because we have the Sarahs up here too. We have Sarahs all over. And we just don't know it. We have diamonds in the rough. And when we can have Sarah kind of tell her story a little bit, so we can begin that journey. If you're in Grayling, you're in Marquette, or you're in Southern Michigan. And so I think it's important that we listen to what Sarah has to say. Sarah?
Good morning, my name is Sarah. I'm a skilled trades die maker at Flint Tool and Die. I just graduated my apprenticeship in October of last year, so 1 year under my belt officially. I'm gonna give you a little bit of background on how I got here, so bear with me on that, but I am not a baby boomer. So to start off, my parents are baby boomers and they were very much pushing college. My mom more so than my dad. And my dad is, he's a tool maker. So he has a shop at his house and I grew up in the shop with him. But my mom was always like, nope, you need to go to college. You need to go to college, you need to go to college. So fast forward, I graduate high school, which I did fairly well in. And I go to college and I have a lot of debt to go to college. And it really didn't take me anywhere. I wasn't really finding my place in college and it just didn't feel right as far as the pathway. So I worked really hard. I worked 3 different jobs with very little skills just to kind of get through. And later on in adulthood, I'm going to be 34 next week. I discovered that there was this opportunity at Flint Tool and Die to become an SSO. So I kind of just like took a leap of faith. I applied for it. I got the position. And while I was there, they were introducing me to this apprenticeship program to test and interview to become either a die maker, an electrician, or machine repair. And I mean, this is all completely unfamiliar to me at that time, but I knew that whatever I was willing to learn, I could, even if it was going to be really hard. So I applied. I was actually put on the apprenticeship within a year of being hired at Flint Tool and Die. And I was one of the first groups of apprentices that had been through that plant in like 15 years, I think it was.
At least, yeah.
So it was kind of uncharted territory as far as like the training and stuff went. So I was able to kind of be part of the group that was able to say, okay, like this is what's working, this is what's not working as far as like how we were learning and how we were going through things. What we do there is we build dies for inner and outer body sheet metal for vehicles. So we're working on tooling, if you will, that is, 50 tons, up to 50 tons. So there's a lot of components that go into those things. So we start from getting the castings in, they go up on machines, we assemble them, we what we call verify or try them out to make sure that they work. And what we're doing is, intolerances less than the thickness of a hair on sheet metal. So there are definitely challenges involved. And what I really like about the trade is that there's a lot of nuts and bolts to it, but there's also an art to it as well. And without getting into all the mechanics of it, I guess my point is that coming from a background, I wasn't introduced to skilled trades at all. Like, I knew my dad was a tool maker, but as Russ said, like as a young girl, I'm like, my dad makes hammers. Like I had no idea what a tool maker was. It's true. I mean, so it was very empowering to me. And now, like, throughout the last, I've been with GM for 6 years now. So throughout the last 6 years, the things I've been able to do outside of work also because of being empowered by skilled trades, things I do around the house, no longer needing to hire people to do things, just the confidence it's given me. And like Russ was also saying, there's so many skilled trades and so many people that you're not even aware of what you're capable of, but it's because traditional schooling doesn't teach us those things. So what I think is really important is going through, these programs where you can speak to high schools and colleges and let people know that there is more to skilled trades. It's not necessarily dirty. Sometimes it's going to be dirty. I get dirty all the time, but sometimes it's not going to be, and it's okay if you do get dirty. It still takes a lot of intelligence, a lot of skill, a lot of troubleshooting. And there are so many people that have that in them that might not have college in them or traditional pathway, like career pathways. So that's what I think is so great about organizations like this and just skilled trades in general. And that's pretty much all I got.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions from our guests that are in the Zoom? Is there anybody out there that would like to ask this panel a question? I think we've got a few minutes. I've got a question for the panel, but I want to give everybody out in the Zoom an opportunity first, if there's something there. Is that capable for those to say hello or anything?
Yeah, they would chat right there.
They would chat. Okay, I'm going to start. If you just take a couple of minutes, I got a question. We got time for maybe one question. And Howard, I want to start with you. What are the skills or characteristics that you look for in students coming out of high school and entering in your apprenticeship program?
Okay, so we're looking for WorkKey scores at a level 5 for math. What we found as a minimum, what we found over a 10-year study of our program was that if students didn't have a high enough level of math achievement, at some point during the apprenticeship, it could be a year in, 2 years in, they would leave the program. And so we kind of, even though, they might leave for this reason or that, it never really actually pointed back to math as the reason, but we realized that if you don't have a certain skill level or you're not working towards attaining that certain level of math, you're probably going to struggle with the curriculum and on the job. So we're looking for a level 5 in the math just to get you started and get you through the curriculum. The other thing you can do, there are a lot of apprentice readiness programs that are available at the high school level now. So across the state, there's various schools and adult programs that are adopting what's called MC3, multi-craft core curriculum. It was produced by the North America's Building Trade Unions. So if adults that might be attending college to upskill in the evening, or if they're, you've got, or maybe at a career tech ed, sometimes these programs for adults running career tech eds where they do apprentice readiness. Having MC3 will allow you to not only be better prepared as an apprentice, we recognize that, and it can knock time off your apprenticeship in our program for related technical instruction, because the math in the MC3 is the bricklayer's math for our national program. So these are some avenues you can take even in high school. It's basically, we're not quite there yet, but we're working on it, Russ, with the goal of dual enrollment, so that you can take these classes in high school and actually apply them in your apprenticeship. So.
Thanks, Howard.
Thank you.
And a lot of these comments that everybody's saying up here, Scott and I are going to have an opportunity to talk more about it, but one of those key words is that credit for previous experience is a key word with these folks. Mark, same question?
Same question?
Yeah.
A lot of things that we're looking for in on the work keys, I think our math is 4, but some things that could help them out is computers. The technology that's out there, especially on the dozers and graders with the GPS, and our mechanics program. I mean, everything's your diagnostics is all coming off computers now. And what we're finding right now with our GPS program, that the apprentices are knowing more than what the baby boomers are out there. So that's some of the things that you can push towards computers. So.
Thanks. Steve, do you have a comment?
Well, I guess first comment is I want to thank Mark and the operating engineer 324 kind of publicly, because tonight my son Richard, Navy veteran, graduates their apprenticeship program as one of their maintenance technicians, heavy equipment. It's been a long road for him, but that means 2 things. 2, 1, he's not living in my basement. 2, I don't have to fix cars anymore. But one of the things we're looking for our apprentices in GM structure is commitment from them. Part of the reason we changed our selection process to the START program was part of the byproduct of these old test and interview. We would bring apprentices into the program, and then we would realize that there's a very serious commitment to not only the on-the-job learning, but in the case of those programs what we do, use a local community colleges, they've got to go to school at night, sometimes 2, 3, 4 nights a week. And it's a pretty heavy personal load on them. When we put apprentices on back in 2016, we had roughly 50 of them either dropped from the program, or because of the way the selection procedure worked, they got into trouble with attendance policy within GM and ended up getting terminated. And General Motors was in no mindset to replace those, so we lost 50 potential slots of future skilled trades persons. The GM was not interested in replacing. We were on a number when we do a national collective bargaining agreement on how many apprentices we're going to put on in the next 4 years. So we lost 50 slots because people weren't committed and dedicated to going through the program.
Thanks, Steve. We got a question from the audience, and what is level 5 math in work keys? Howard or Martin? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, level 5 is really not that difficult. So it's basically still addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, but there's going to be story problems. So For example, you've got a room that's 60 by 40. You've got boxes of tile. There's 25 square feet of tile in a box. How many tile does it take to tile that room? So it's more of applied mathematics, not necessarily theoretical. We don't want to know what you know, we want to know what you can do with what you know. So it's not really a high level, it's just pretty easily attainable.
Okay, thank you. Harvey, I got a question for you. How do apprenticeships fit into career pathways?
Okay, that's a good question. I would say that apprenticeships is part of that pathway. It's part of a laddered success story. A student that goes through an apprenticeship program to say become a millwright, that's not the end of the road when you say, okay, now I'm a millwright, because there's advancement opportunities for you to proceed in your career pathway. I think every one of us up here was an apprentice at one time. So we went through our apprenticeship, and that doesn't mean our career today is stuck at the trade level that we were at. We've all managed to move forward. Even Russ was an apprentice. Hard to believe, but it's true. Yeah.
Miguel, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I feel my work history is reflected directly into what Harvey was saying, that just because you end up getting your journeyman's card, finishing your skilled trades training, it doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck anywhere. You could do that for 30 years, retire, and probably make an excellent living, but when you complete your journeyman's, you're a couple credits away from an associate's degree, at least with Delta College anyway. So you can finish out, you get your associate's degree and start working your way up into supervision of some sort. Carry on to bachelor's and all those great things, and move into roles. Everyone's sitting up here at the table.
Thank you. Sarah, I've got a question for you. We're getting up to the end here. What classes should a person take now if still in school to help them get prepared for an apprenticeship program? Would you suggest?
Math, definitely. Technical math was one of my favorite classes, and it was like gentleman over here was saying, really how to apply it in real world circumstances. So I feel like that would definitely help prepare people who are looking to get into an apprenticeship program. That would be one of the main ones for sure.
Thank you. I think that's about the end of our time here. We're going to need a couple minutes to get ready for our next session. So let's give the panel a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I was on the job site last year.
Thank you so much to all of the panelists and all who attend. One thing I think we know for sure, apprenticeships are a tried and proven method of training. The other college, if you will. Apprenticeships, listen, what I tell folks, if you want to be a lawyer, by all means, go to law school. But if you would like to be a skilled tradesman, the pathway to that is via registered apprenticeships, the oldest form of training known to man. I will move into our next discussion. We're going to have somewhat of a two-way discussion. Russ Davis will bring some remarks, but also we'll bring remarks from our partners at the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. This next person I bring to you, I call a friend, a mentor, Scott Yetley is with the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, has a long history in apprenticeships, is a journeyman himself, and now is a champion for folks entering registered apprenticeship. Scott, thank you so much for the work that you have done. Join me in welcoming Scott Yetley.
Thank you, Kevin. And good morning. So I'm proud to be here at the MEATA conference this morning in person. So just as excited as everybody else is. Also proud to be a product of apprenticeship, multiple apprenticeships actually. So started as a tool maker, so I've got something in common with some of you. Went through a sheet metal upgrade program, ended up as a mold maker eventually through some more training in added on apprenticeships, and eventually ended up working in technology advancement. Appreciate the comments about how the computer skills are needed. So I worked as a CAM specialist in CAD/CAM programming for several years. And so I just have a high respect for a lot of the work that a lot of you are involved with and understand much of it actually. But I think the idea that the skills that you're learning are applicable beyond that makes sense to me. I'm currently in a new role for me. I serve as the manager for Michigan's new section. We're not quite 2 years old, and we are the state apprenticeship expansion section in the Department of Labor. And I'm really honored to be the manager for that section. We are growing a team of talented people, all of them younger than me, who are working to try and help Michigan expand the use of the registered apprenticeship model. So we're really excited about that. I love when we hear people come up and serve on a panel and talk about 5 years to go and 1 year to go and 4 years to go. And my hair isn't silver, it's now fully white, but I'm only in this gig 2 years and I'm staying right where I'm at. So I'm gonna be here for like 20 or 30 years in this position. So just if anyone's wondering, right? So we're just getting started. And we love the opportunity to build on the work that's been done across our state. I can tell you that everything that Michigan has today in the way of grant activities and expansion of apprenticeship activities is built on the foundation that we've already heard a lot about this morning from the people that are sharing with you a lot about how we got here. And we're honored as a state to receive a lot of federal funding now, as Russ mentioned early, to kind of build on and expand the opportunities. I was excited to hear about Steve Long's idea of a die maker college. How cool is that? I mean, and the last build shop in North America, what a great place for that to happen here in Michigan. To build on the history and to embrace the technology that now is so critical to that trade. Russ also talked about the fact though that apprenticeship is expanding beyond just traditional trades and into non-traditional areas. So we're really excited when we look at the fact that there's almost 1,000 apprentices in healthcare. We look at IT. One of my personal favorites is a commercial drone pilot that I recently saw is an occupation that you can join a registered apprenticeship for. It's just kind of a world of opportunity. The state takes registered apprenticeship expansion very seriously. It's not just the department that's being created or the section that works on the expansion, but we also have embraced awards for several funds that try to even increase apprenticeship programs further. We currently have active at the state an apprenticeship state expansion. Those of you who work with the state know it's called Policy Issuance 2004, which sets up about 800 new apprenticeship opportunities in the state. We this year started on a project awarded last year, which is a youth apprenticeship readiness grant. That project promises over 1,000 new opportunities for youth and specifically focuses on youth that are secondary age, so 16 to 18, co-enrolled in registered apprenticeships while they're in high school. Mark Pogliano serves part of the state in the Jackson area where Russ mentioned they already have lots of apprentices of that age in registered apprenticeship programs. We're looking to expand that across the state. We have a state apprenticeship expansion 2020 project that promises over 5,000 new registered apprenticeships by 2023 that we're embracing. And we were just awarded this year a $10 million project for state apprenticeship expansion, equity, and inclusion to increase opportunities for traditionally underrepresented populations, including women, people of color, veterans, and others into registered apprenticeships. And that one has about 1,600 new registered opportunities on board. Am I able to get to the website? Please, I should say please.
Here's your mouse.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And you got a keyboard here, so we can just do this here. We do want to share a screen, so we'll do that first. Where are you trying to go here?
I'm gonna type something in here.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So I feel like I just started another apprenticeship right here now. Okay, so I'm just gonna bump over to the www.michigan.gov. So the Leo homepage and then into, so / and then apprenticeship. And that gets us to the state's apprenticeship landing page. I'm gonna stop using the mouse that's not connected to the screen and try this other one.
Must be mine.
They've got several options here and I keep picking the wrong one. So the program I mentioned right at the end there, we call the My Stairs. It's a Michigan statewide targeted apprenticeship inclusion and readiness system. Governor Whitmer announced this program in Grand Rapids earlier in the year. We are working with our partners currently to get things lined up. It will launch formally just after the first of the year. But we have several other programs running as well, and you can find lists of recipients. So if you're in an area where you're trying to figure out how do I get engaged in apprenticeship, this website is a good place to go. If you know an employer that's looking to begin a program or a career seeker or a job seeker that's looking for an apprenticeship, this is an option as well. And so you can pick on these and learn about where there are projects across the state that are working to increase the reimbursement funding around a number of these programs starting. If you're curious about what's happening in Michigan around registered apprenticeship, we have probably one of the coolest data displays nationally in our state around the numbers of apprentices, what they're doing. We use the data directly from Russ's team's input in the Rapid system, it's called. And then there's this little dashboard that gives you a chance to find out where we're at in the number of programs. And you can also say, select utilities where we've got 863 programs, and you can watch demographics around those programs, women, veterans, people of color and youth, some of our focus areas. You can also go back to the home page and you can look at regional data, so you can find out what's happening in each region. You can pick on a region and then you'll get numbers for that region. It'll tell you where the apprentices are located, what occupations they're in, and again, demographics. We also have, back at the home screen, an opportunity to look at the occupational data, which is pretty cool. So you can kind of find out what wages look like. Wage record data is just being tied in with the Rapids data to begin to give us records. So now we can see what's happening. We can pick, we'll pick on Howard for a minute. So brick masons, block masons, we can find out numbers, we can find out wages. Don't panic, Howard. This is data from 2019 and March of 21. Which will be updated next week during National Apprenticeship Week. I'm guessing you'll see a jump in these numbers and probably in the wages as well. But this is an area where you can go and kind of check out what's happening in Michigan. And you can see that starting wages in the occupation that Howard is sponsoring are way above the average starting wage in Michigan. So there isn't some incentive to look at those occupations. I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but it's pretty easy to click around there and find out what's going on. You can also go right back to the website. And one of the things that's worth mentioning is that we are privileged to have started, as part of our project this past year, a Michigan Apprenticeship Advisory Board. And we're honored to have 19 board members who work to, at a state level, provide guidance to any teams or any groups who are working to implement apprenticeship across the state. Russ Davis is on the board, as well as several others representing employers, labor organizations, educators from across the state, workforce development and government. And it's really awesome to be in sessions with this group as they talk about strategies to increase the number of opportunities for Michiganders to embrace registered apprenticeship. So we've got 4 subcommittees that work out of that team. And I'm not sure how to back up there. Oh, there's one way to do it right there. We've got 4 subcommittees that work out of the advisory board, and right now they're working on what they believe are the most important areas for Michigan to expand apprenticeship in. And the subcommittees, they're working on awareness and marketing. Still, even with the, I'll tell you, the best I've ever seen in my career knowledge about apprenticeship nationwide and in our state, they said, hey, there is still a lot of people, including employers, parents, youth, and others, that do not understand the benefits that the panel just described from a registered apprenticeship program. So we have significant funding identified right now in Michigan to fix that. So look for improved awareness and marketing. Secondly, youth and school to registered apprenticeship. We've got a subcommittee focused just on expanding that area. Veterans, registered apprenticeship, and the GI Bill. What a beautiful marriage. As Russ mentioned, the wages are typically lower when you start a registered apprenticeship program, but veterans eligible for GI benefits have some makeup there so that they can continue to raise their family while they're an apprentice. And as their apprentice wages grow, the GI Bill dollars come smaller and they end up with the benefits of that professional trade at the end of the program. Our last area of leverage is something Steve talked about earlier on the panel, and that is a Michigan Apprenticeship Readiness Certificate. Our team is struggling through the process of trying to make that apprentice readiness certification become Michigan-wide, so we can recognize those students or pre-apprentices or others who already have the skill or are learning the skills that they need to be able to start at a better position inside their apprenticeship program. And that's our current work. I guess I want to second Russ's notion up front that at the state of Michigan in Lansing, we don't expand registered apprenticeship. We have a section with that name, and I'm honored to be part of that section. We got a great team, but apprenticeship expansion, as he mentioned, happens where you are, right? That's the area where apprenticeship actually expands. So regional implementation consortia, our labor partners, the coordinators, the directors, Michigan Works agencies help us to distribute the funding that we use to reimburse registered apprenticeship. They're set up in 16 regions across the state, but they're sponsors and employers, and you can't have an apprenticeship program without them. One of the benefits of earn and learn is that you earn from the beginning, and that means you're an employee. So that's really cool. So hats off to them. All told, we've got about 8,000 new opportunities and grant projects across the state. But since that doesn't happen without you involved, I wanted to ask Russ to come back up and join me. And then we want to also introduce Jenny Gino, and I can't see the participants, but I'm hoping that Jenny is, okay, that Jenny is on the line and can talk with us for a few minutes from in the trenches, in the field, one of our partners on a couple of different projects at the state. Jenny, can you give us a little idea of what you're up to, please?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I'm going to take some questions. We can hear you loud and clear.
Screen share.
Just let me know when you want me to go.
Go.
Okay, thanks, Ross. Good morning. My name is Jenny Gino. I am the Executive Director of Career and Technical Education for Saginaw County. I work for the Saginaw Intermediate School District, and we have been engaging with apprenticeship expansion for a while in a lot of different venues. So what I'll do is I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, and then Scott and Russ, if there's anything else you'd like me to add to that, just ask me some questions. I guess probably the easiest way to do it. So I've been in Saginaw for a little over 4 years now, and one of the goals that I personally had when I arrived here was to expand apprenticeships. And so we have a couple of programs at our Career Center that are directly tied to our Local 85. So our welding program has been for years, and then we added an HVAC program this year that I'm so proud to say is not only full, but has a wait list as well. So two extremely strong programs. And so essentially our state-approved CTE programs in both of those areas are apprenticeship readiness programs. I mean, they're taught by the same instructors that teach the apprentices at Local 85. So these students are lined up, should they apply for an apprenticeship with Local 85, to be able to be an asset to them and have kind of like an edge on their whole apprenticeship process. Because they're getting the same training. And pre-COVID, the students were able to go to Local 85 and work side by side with apprentices as mentors. So really getting the whole gamut. And then they also receive credit for the things that they've learned in the program, because again, the instructors are the same ones that are teaching the apprentices. So that's the place that we started, but then we started looking at other areas and how we might expand them. So currently, so about 2 years ago, we started talking about apprenticeships with one of our largest hospitals. We have 3 very large hospitals in Saginaw County. It's kind of the hub of healthcare throughout our region is right here. So we really thought we would tackle that first because of course there's massive amounts of openings. I met with them yesterday, over 150 registered nurse positions in just one of the hospitals, right? So how are we going to work to close that gap? And so we've attacked it from a lot of different avenues, not just apprenticeship, but that was one that we really wanted to move forward with. And so a large regional need has been with clinical medical assistants. So we did a lot of the legwork already. We lined up our medical academy program, which actually, we have a classroom right on site at Covenant Healthcare. So the students are right there. And we lined it up with the clinical medical assisting program at Delta College. So there's a satellite site in downtown Saginaw. So the hospital, the Career Center, and Delta College are all within like 5 minutes of each other. So a real perfect setup for students. And so the things that the kids were learning curriculum-wise in our medical academy were designed to funnel directly into that program for a couple of reasons. Not because everybody is going to be a clinical medical assistant, but because that would set them up on a pathway towards registered apprenticeship, which Covenant was very interested in. But it's also great foundational skills for any healthcare occupation, no matter what a student did, because they're just solid skills. And then, so anyway, we met, we kind of got everything preliminarily lined up, and then COVID hit. So obviously our hospitals were hit very hard in that process. We had to put a pause on that. Although some students were actually hired, well, I shouldn't say some, a lot of students were actually hired because they were so short-staffed in a variety of occupations, and Covenant's just a great partner in terms of being able to offer tuition reimbursement and things like that for students and on the site training. So about a month ago, they called and they're like, we're ready to move forward. So we had a fantastic meeting. Russ was there virtually yesterday as we were talking about getting this thing up and running. And so we're primed to go with a clinical medical assistant registered apprenticeship starting second semester. But simultaneously through these conversations, we have been talking about what are some of those things. You know, it's everything that we put in that program as a precursor to success for an apprenticeship and a precursor to success as an employee. Are those things still relevant? Because we've been through, 20 months of COVID now. So we're meeting on Monday to finalize that. And that is actually going to be the basis for our Michigan Apprenticeship Readiness Certificate for healthcare for that particular occupation. So really excited about that. A similar project that we've worked on is in the hospitality industry, and I saw Chris Woodruff on the line as well. So he was actually one of our post-secondary partners that participated in this process. So we started off writing a new curriculum for the state of Michigan for a new SIP code. So that's what we call our programs. They're based off of, they're classified, they're like individual curriculums for industry. And so we started with hospitality administration and worked with the Michigan Restaurant Lodging Association with representatives from all of the regions throughout Michigan. I think we had 7 post-secondary partners involved at the onset. And I think when all was said and done, we ended up with 6. And then a plethora of secondary, actually probably culinary instructors, because at one point hospitality fell under that program along the line. So we started down that process, and then we received a grant to identify industry credentials, which is part of our state-approved CTE federal legislation requirements. So through that process, it became clear that we really needed to start looking at a broader based piece. Can we develop some apprenticeships that would align with the different elements in the hospitality industry, and then be able to use some of the data gleaned from our employer surveys to develop a mark. So we did some amazing work. It took, gosh, I think we're not 100% finalized yet, but we're getting closer. We should be done by December with everything. It'll have statewide articulation agreements for all of our post-secondary entities. We will have, obviously the credential piece, which is what we were working on to begin with, and also a new curriculum, and also an apprenticeship as well. And so really excited about that process and the level of engagement that we had from across the state of Michigan in getting those things done. Lastly, I'll talk about education. Apprenticeship is something that as I talk to employers more and more, there's more and more interest in that area. In our area, we don't have a lot of apprenticeships with manufacturing. The majority of them tend to be aligned with the construction industry. I work pretty closely with our manufacturers though, and they're interested in taking a look at that now. It's really a matter of understanding and knowledge on what they can and can't do. So we're working on that at the state level to really be able to streamline those processes to make it crystal clear for employers so that the fear factor is not something that's going to turn them off from that robust opportunity. So through this process, I got a call from a person I didn't even know that was looking at teacher apprenticeships. So anyway, long story short, it turns out that the state of Kentucky submitted one to the Department of Labor. And so we were waiting on whether or not that got approved. And so once that approval process is completed, there's a group of us that are working with Saginaw Valley State University to take a look at what those standards might look like and align them to Michigan. We'll obviously include more partners, but that's just kind of how the information sort of came to me to be able to do something to address our teacher shortage. There's a lot of pathways within education, like for paraprofessionals and so forth. But the teacher shortage is a crisis. I can't underline that enough because it touches every single industry. And so we are looking at it from a multiple array of options to try to get more people in the field. And wouldn't it be great if we had an apprenticeship? So, and then lastly, I think maybe I said lastly last time, but there's one more. Through one of the expansion grants, we are bringing a program called Access for All to Saginaw County and Jackson County, and I believe Wayne County. So this is originated in Detroit, and we've been doing apprenticeship roadshows with our trades partners for probably about 3 years now. Very well attended, tons of interest in our community, and so we knew that that is something that we really wanted to focus on. And so through a variety of projects and work and different things I've been involved in, I became aware of Access for All through my friend Lee Graham. We co-presented a couple of years ago at a conference, and he was talking about the success that they've had with it, and the data was just great. And it really kind of spoke to access and equity, which is foundational to anything that I do. And so it just made sense that that would be something that we would want to offer in Saginaw. And they were looking, so Workforce Development Institute that oversees that program was looking at expansion across Michigan into different areas where there was a need. And so Saginaw actually came up in their conversations, as did Jackson. And so through this grant, we're able to bring these programs to a couple more communities. And right now, I believe we're set to launch in December, if all goes well. And so I'm not sure how the holidays all fit into that, but we're really excited about that. And a lot of interest from our community, and it's getting the word out, but I feel like we're, at least trying to attack it at all ends because it's bigger than just youth. So.
Test. No. Thank you, Jenny. And to our technologist here who works on the audio video, well done. It's impressive when it kind of comes together. I was excited to see you show up on the screen. I especially like how you take apprenticeship expansion and put it into December and then try and figure out how the holidays fit in afterwards. So well done. Russ, were you gonna say something?
Both Scott and Jenny said it all, but I think a couple of comments I'd like to make is through what Jenny's been doing, what we've all been doing. We got to remember that apprenticeship's a flexible training strategy that can be customized to meet the needs of any business. And I think when we realize that the 12 or 1,300 different occupations and how we can massage that and make that work. The other part of it, as I didn't mention earlier, was the fact that 99% of our apprentices that we have are debt-free. And so I don't believe I mentioned that yet today. And so when we start talking about student debt, and in fact, last Friday, I had a interview with an apprentice and also with Local 85. And the student started talking about going to fairs for a couple of years, then coming back and getting an apprenticeship. And through that conversation, discovered that by going through local 85, there'd be no student debt. They were going to put in close to $20,000 a year into that person's education. Over 5 years, $100,000, and on top of that would also pay for the education afterwards. And so when more parents, more students hear about the opportunities, and on top of that, the articulation with the CTs and with community colleges, we have to really look at that career pathway. The other point is that when we start looking at these new non-traditional occupations, and what Jenny's doing is that credit for previous experience, and also these advanced certificates before they enter the apprenticeship, front-loaded certificates. I think that's where the federal government finally understood that we've got to change somewhat from just time-based. And if we're going to go into the IT or the healthcare, and if the requirement is some sort of certificate, that's where the CTEs and the community colleges can really help out. Once we get that certificate, then that pathway to that registered apprenticeship seems to be more seamless to where the community, where the hospitals and health agencies are looking forward, will work with us on. And so I just wanted to add that. And the other part is the fact that if we are talking to potential sponsors as well, we've never done that, we don't know if we can do it, certainly contact one of us to where we can kind of talk to you and say, you know, maybe this will work, you know, and we can work around. We're not reinventing the wheel.
Unless we have a question in the chat.
Sure.
It is on the monitor behind.
Okay. Well, that's a great question. Yeah, there is. The question is there for apprenticeships for those that have got certificates? If we go back to the Teagle 1312, talks about in order to have a certificate for pre-apprenticeships, you need one sponsor. And I can remember my days at Delta College, and I know Harvey also knows this. Those students that were coming out of the Bay Area Next Skill Center with those skill sets would come into Delta, and I'm gonna tell you what, none of them graduated. What was happening was the businesses were coming to them, say, hey, who do you have in the hopper that's got those skill sets? And what was happening, they would get credit towards your apprenticeship and go directly into an apprenticeship. And I think that that's the emphasis behind the federal government. We have no jurisdiction over pre-apprenticeship. We can advise. We've talked about construction trades. What would you like to see as a pre-apprenticeship? I've talked to Jenny many times. And if I was next year, for instance, that's working with Harvey at Delta College, say, hey, if these students have these 3 or 4 classes, have a certificate, we'll have a direct entry in for an interview for apprenticeship. That's the key. And I think the emphasis behind it, what is it these students can take? And it isn't a lot of classes, folks. It could be some skill sets. Last Friday, or 2 weeks ago, when I had the interview over to Local 85, I listened to that sponsor, and he told that student, I want you to take 2 classes. These are the 2 classes I want you to take. And so in the fall semesters, he's going to dual enroll with Harvey. He's going to take those two classes, and he's going to be a direct interview for that apprenticeship. And so I think that when parents and students understand those direct entry types of opportunities, it'll help immensely.
Thank you, Russ. And hopefully that helps. I would add to try to answer that question, and I'm not sure I read all of it, but I think also the idea was not just the prior credit, but have a queue of people who are kind of recognized that my neck doesn't turn that far actually, but it says, Russ, has there been any work in, oh, don't move it right now. Creating a prioritization of students who have been through these types of pre-apprenticeship programs and the selection criteria for a registered apprenticeship. And I just wanted to add, Russ, that the Michigan Apprenticeship Advisory Board, one of the subcommittees, actually Callan Eschenberg on our team facilitates that group's sessions. They are struggling through, I mentioned earlier, the Michigan Apprenticeship Readiness Certificate and what does that mean? And one of the opportunities from that work is to begin to have a list of those who have completed a pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship readiness training and have achieved a certificate. We don't yet have guidance. We expect to have that by the end of the year. But the idea is to be able to build the list that that question addresses. It's an excellent idea. And in the work that starts just after the first of the year through the My Stairs project, in that work, we begin to track those who are achieving the MARC certificates. In our state, we owe a tracking system. And that doesn't mean a lot to everybody, but it's basically a state level system that we can use to find out who has what in the way of training. We want to build that system out to do exactly what that question suggests. And that is to have a ready list of those qualified or well qualified to step into a registered apprenticeship program. Great question. Do we have any other questions? Actually, we didn't kind of announce that, I guess, but Jenny and I and Russ are available here for another 24 minutes and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have here in the conference room or that those have through the chat that are online.
As long as we're waiting for questions, I just want to make one more announcement. That was about National Apprenticeship Week, which is next week. And so currently Michigan's at 39 events and 12 proclamations. I believe last year we were upwards of 50. We were only second, I believe, to Texas. And so we're doing quite well under the situation. There's a lot of events are virtual. A lot of people are turning proclamations, but if you do have questions about it, you can go to www.apprenticeship.gov where you can see that information, or you can send that information to myself or Mark DeCoster. Mark is uploading all the information if you don't upload it, but just wanted to announce that today. And this is considered an event. We can have those events aren't just for next week. If you have an event this week or you have one the following week, we can list that as a National Apprenticeship Week event.
Jenny, Gino, looks like you have one more last thing. Please add that now.
Sure. So when we were talking about the benefits of apprenticeship, one of the things, because sometimes you run into perception issues as well. And so I'm not sure if this is true with all community colleges, but we've been creating these career pathways guides to help, really we've created them for schools because apprenticeship it's a weak area of understanding. So we've done a lot of things around helping counselors to better understand how to connect students to the different apprenticeships and to the different training coordinators and what's required and things of that nature. And then these career pathways guides to kind of lay everything out for them. And we've built it so that it includes the college degrees all the way up to bachelor's or beyond, so that we make sure that that's part of the discussion, because that's the way that we can, ensure that everybody will take a look at it. So with that, one of the big aha moments here for parents has been that understanding that if my child starts off at Delta College, which is our local community college, and decides that they want to go into an apprenticeship, and it's in the same, obviously the same industry, then the credit that they've earned at Delta, it factors in, because that's the training that, they're going to be getting, obviously some training, some education, some schooling towards an apprenticeship, and vice versa. If they start an apprenticeship and they're like, this isn't for me, but they want to stay in that industry, then that credit transfers back over, into Delta College. It's that reciprocity piece. And that's been, it's been a really big factor in getting individuals that might be on the fence or might have some questions or uncertain, or that the fact is it's reciprocal. So no matter what, you're not going to lose anything if you stay within that same industry. And then to Russ's point about Local 85, again, I'm not sure if all the unions are the same way, but they also they give their apprentices, money to go back to school. And so, that apprenticeship will get them the 2 classes shy of their associate's degree, but they get money so that they can take those 2 classes if they want to attain that credential as well. So I think it's really important when we're talking about apprenticeship to consider all of the factors and who our audience is, and helping them to see that you can create this program of study that's going to align with your values and your needs. And there's some very good pathways, but we need to paint those pictures of how we're going to get there for them, that's something that we're trying really hard to do in our local area. So I just wanted to add that part as well.
Russ, there's a question in the chat.
Can we see it up there?
We're gonna grab it there.
Well, let's try to limit the questions just to 4 or 5 words, please. Just kidding.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I think what I'm reading there, is the MEM for our apprenticeship is 1 year, 2,000 hours. We have apprenticeships from 1 year to 5 years. And so what also that means when it's competency based is you're going to do at least 2,000 hours before you receive your DOL certificate. I think I stated before that we've taken that time-based medical assistant, a 2-year program, in the entities that have moved that to competency-based. Some of those are going from 15 to 17 months, 18 months or whatever. But what has happened is that those folks are saying, well, we're going to turn this 1-year competency-based program, time-based, into a competency-based program. You still have to do at least 2,000 hours. You will not receive a DOL certificate less than 2,000 hours. And so that is, we had quite the discussion earlier this year. It's come down from Washington, and and you're going to do it at least 144 clock hours. Now, when we go to that MA program, I keep picking on that a little bit today. That was a time-based, which was a minimum of 288 clock hours. Though you finish that in less than 2 years, you've got to still do at least 288 clock hours of schooling. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. More questions?
I had a question for the audience here, specifically the audience to my right, Sarah, so I'm going to pick on you. One of the things that we're really challenged with related to youth, and I'm going to put you in that category for a moment. I know you graduated your apprenticeship last fall, is that correct? I wanted to ask, there is sort of a stigma for youth exiting high school programs, and basically it kind of goes like, I'm coming out of high school and I'm compelled to go to college, and I've heard this from several youth that may be interested in apprenticeship. However, they feel like their friends are not gonna be okay with that. I mean, they're they're not gonna be worthwhile if they don't go to college. And I'm part of the age group that's caused part of that, because we encouraged our kids to go to college, and my youngest actually is in an apprenticeship program, but it was his choice after he ran out of college funding. So, you know, it wasn't an easy choice for him. He's absolutely a salesperson for registered apprenticeship today, but he definitely wasn't exiting high school. So would you share your thoughts, please, with us about what would we say? I know part of our awareness and marketing campaign in Michigan needs to work to address that. Thank you.
So there definitely is, oh, this way?
Yeah, right there, camera.
There you go.
Okay, there definitely is a stigma on apprenticeships, versus like traditional college. So in my opinion, the way you approach that is, to make them more well-known and talk about them. I wasn't really aware, like I had heard of them before, but I didn't really know what it entailed. And if there's one thing I know in life, money talks, right? So if I would have known coming out of high school that I was able to learn and continue my education while simultaneously making a living, my idea of college versus an apprenticeship might have been completely different. I feel like it's more well known now than it was then. I graduated 16 years ago. So a lot has changed since then. And I say that because now I have a niece that just graduated high school, and she's going into a welding apprenticeship, which I'm very, very proud of her for doing. And she did that all on her own, but she just recognized that traditional college wasn't for her. In traditional college and corporate pathways are great for some people, but there's a lot of people that don't understand the opportunities that come from apprenticeships, paid apprenticeships, and just non-traditional workforce is what I would call it. If you look around you, everything around us is skilled trades. And I didn't even understand that impact until I was introduced to the apprenticeship program. So the more that we talk about things like, you know, the floor that we walk on, the walls that are built around us, how our cars are built, things like that with the kids as they grow up, and definitely marketing towards like the 16 to 18, getting ready to graduate high school, the more that we just like advocate that there is different ways to learn and to be educated. I think that's going to be huge for growing these programs. And that there's so many, I mean, there's literally so many different apprenticeships. I think it's amazing to hear that there's an opportunity to become a teacher or possibly become, you know, a teacher through an apprenticeship. You learn so much more when you're hands-on, in my opinion, through my experience with it, than you do just reading a book. And I feel like there's so many young people that can relate to that. They feel like they are lost. Why am I taking these classes? Like they don't even pertain to what I really want to do. So when you're, you know, elbows deep in what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, it is so much more empowering. And I just think that that's the way that we're going to continue to get people involved, is to get high school and community colleges with these programs where they can kind of get their feet wet with a work and learn environment, if you will.
Well said, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. To add to that, we need more Sarahs in the world helping us, because I believe that younger folks will listen more to Sarah than the parents or myself. Now, I took that young individual to Local 85 2 weeks ago. And after the 2 hours or so he was there, he went back to school. He let him know that he was going to start that apprenticeship in June. He was going to get $20.41 as an entered apprentice. They were going to pay for his schooling. He started doing the math, and he started figuring out, well, gosh, I can go buy a Camaro right off the get-go, which his mom said that won't happen. But 2 days later, I had two students, his peers, his football buddies, call me. And one's going to Delta College right now. He's got a 5G welding certificate. The other one is at Bay Aranac, and they both want to get into an apprenticeship. Now, that right there was more valuable than me going out and talking to a bunch of parents about this. Is I don't know. And that's why the Sarahs and these younger folks are the ones that we really need to help our marketing campaign.
Amen.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Absolutely. Or anybody else, please.
Yeah. Anybody like to come up here? Come on up.
Look right that way in the corner there.
All right, not to steal the mic from anyone here, but that question was really interesting to me because in high school, I had a group of friends, there was probably about 10 of us. 8 of us ended up going into trades and 2 of them went on to 4-year degrees. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about 4-year degrees, but in that time frame, one of them, it took him 8 years to get his 4-year degree because he stumbled a little bit along the way. And then the other one, he was right on track, went to Northwood, got a job at Dow, and he was super successful, but he still had a bunch of college debts. The entire time that he was getting an education and spending money, I was out making money, and I had a house, I had 2 brand new Harleys, I had a brand new truck, and I blew a lot of money, which is beside the point. Also, one of the things that I noticed when I go on recruiting trips to high schools is I get more questions from the guidance counselors of what skilled trades are, how apprenticeship programs work, and where they're available at.
Then I lose, they're saying they're not hearing yet. Kind of hold it up to your mouth a little bit. There you go.
You guys hear me now?
Yeah.
There we go. I get more questions from guidance counselors in high school than even the students of all these programs. And to me, that's kind of frustrating because the people who are guiding the high schoolers don't even know how to push these programs. And I think that's one of the areas that all of us need to address and educate those folks more so that they can be a mouthpiece for us as well.
Thank you.
Harleys? Yeah, what type of Harleys do you have?
I've kind of had a gambit. I started out with a Sportster and I built that up with my machining skills. And then went to a wide glide and then I went to an ultra classic and then I went to a street bob and now I'm at a Screaming Eagle soft tail deuce. So.
Oh, wow, your buddies are poor college.
No, they're still making them college debt payments.
But there's a question, there's several questions in the chat.
So can you read that?
So the question, I think, about those students that would get a front-loaded certificate, where do they start out in the apprenticeship as far as wages? And generally what I say is that if you do have that certificate, you get credit for previous experience. And that is strictly up to the employer on what wage and what level they come in at. We have to remember that most all apprenticeships have a 25% probation period. So if you have a 4-year apprenticeship period, that apprenticeship probation period could be 2,000 hours. And in that probation period, generally speaking, is where employers will review and place people. We, as a Department of Labor, have no jurisdiction over that. We allow that to be left right up to each and every employer. Both of us, Scott and I may have went to school and we both start out. Scott's a little bit quicker learner than me. He may start out in the 2nd or 3rd period. And they said, hey, Russ, you're still going to start out back here. So I think it's very flexible and still left up to the employer.
I think Jenny answered one of the questions for somebody.
Did you? Okay.
What are some recommended resources for people who want to explore trades as an option? Where should they start?
I'll tell you where I think they should, folks that want to start is go right to the community college and go to see the Kathleen Fox, the Harvey Snyders, the Camerons, and take a mechanical class, a welding class, CNC class, and find out what it is. What I found is that probably 37% or right around there of our students in high schools are not fitted for traditional high school. And it doesn't matter where you're at. And the first thing that parents seem to do is when they get out of high school is put them into a community college or go to college and right back in taking more English, social studies and all that. Well, they didn't like that for the first 4 years. Why would we do that? And I found out when I was there, and I'm sure that I'll get a second on this, that if after that, if you could go and you can get into one of these occupational classes, you find out, wow, I really like this. We can always go back, and many of us did. We went through our apprenticeships, and when we got done, we went back and got our 2-year, 4-year, our master's or whatever, and we were fitted a little bit better for English and social studies after we found out what we wanted to do in life. And I think that when we allow our students to go in there and talk to these counselors on their own, talk to the Harveys and the Camerons and then Kathleen and say, and they get the advice there, boy, we have some great successes, because then we have folks that call us up and say, hey, who do you have in the hopper? And we place those people.
So I would second that notion for sure. I know in a lot of cases that the sponsor of the apprenticeship program is looking right now today for anybody who can meet the requirements, because in most cases, they're desperate to have people entering the program, but to have some of the classes that you're gonna have to take anyway on the apprenticeship program under your belt is definitely an advantage, because those are ones that the employer would need to pay for then. So they'll be looking for something like that. The other thing I could recommend is that the number of opportunities for apprenticeship programs today are better than they have been in the past. I don't know, you guys know better than I do here, but for a long time. And so use the search word apprentice, because that way if they list the opportunity as an apprentice rather than an apprenticeship, you'll still find them. And put that into any of the job search engines, and you'll see that there are organizations, labor organizations, employers, sponsors offering stipends for those who are ready to start a program. They're desperate to get people into the pathways. The panel did a great job of explaining, the need and what's happening today in the job market. So use the apprentice word. That's what we tell a lot of parents. Get on there with them, get on your phone, start looking to see what you can find that's available.
I just saw that. Can we add middle school to that? Absolutely. And just an example, for probably the last, well, up till the COVID, the last probably 10, 12 years in Frankenmuth schools, we had a career fair at the elementary level. And all of the trades that I can see here, including Delta College, was at that. And this was for K through 4. What that did is it gave awareness to those elementary students. And Mark is here from the operating engineers with their simulator, and I will tell you that though they had students lined up 10 deep at all times wanting to get on that simulator and load those dump trucks up with rocks. But the other thing was each and every trade brought something for those students at that level. Howard was making the arches with the students. But I would tell you that it's happened 10 or 12 years ago, and today some of those students out of Frankenmuth are registered apprentices because of that event. And I think that when we have those counselors go back and have all of us come in there and just have awareness. And truly at that, maybe at the elementary or middle school level, we have to present different than I'm going to present to an adult. But when we have our presentation to the level we're talking to, you get a lot of wows.
Russ,
Yes,
you can mention this, but Michigan Construction Career Days.
yes,
Excellent way for students to learn about different trades, hands-on.
yeah.
And the career quest that the
Yeah.
Michiganders have been doing across the state.
Yeah, good point, Harvey. And what Harvey just said, it was Michigan Construction Days. It's generally speaking, the first Wednesday, Thursday in May, or the second one right around then. We have 2,000 to 3,000 students go down there. I mentioned about National Apprenticeship Week, but next week, which is on a Thursday in Howell, we're gonna have National Apprenticeship in Howell, Michigan again. I think there's like about 100 and some educators, Mark, something.
Last I knew there was 100, that was last week.
Yeah, 100 educators. So if you've never been to Howell, down to that training center, it's worth it for you to go down because you're gonna have all the trades. I don't believe they're gonna go into the back, but they're gonna have the whole part set up for all the trades. You're gonna be able to see exactly what apprentice does. You're gonna be, and I believe that some of the counselors and administrators are gonna be able to lay that brick if they want to. But I think when students, now just another quick example, I took my grandson there 4 years ago. He would have been an 8th grader. And next thing, I was busy up front in the booth. I went back there and here he was with a sheet metal talking about design. And it stuck with him, and now he's the one that I've been taking around that's gonna get an apprenticeship, because he knew right then after he saw that, I want to go into the design or into the trades. So I do agree with whoever sent that in about the middle school. We need to back that down to where it's 7th and 8th grade to be able to plant that seed, or even where we do in the elementary schools. Thanks for the question.
Sarah? No, we don't. Actually, we'd be delighted for you to add that, as long as Kevin Green's okay with it. He says go right ahead.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys all have this, but in my area, we had what was called the Skill Center.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had also been exposed to that a little bit earlier, maybe in the middle school age, and also given an opportunity just to dabble in something. If I remember correctly, there was a lot of, there was like a design class you could take, there was a construction trade class, but it was very limited at the time. So I think maybe focusing on expanding that for the younger, aged kids, like 7th through 9th grade, maybe, just to let them get their hands into something and see if it would be a good fit for them.
Thanks, Sarah.
Great idea. Yep, thank you. And special thanks to Jenny Gino for joining us via Zoom. And Russ and I are thankful for each of you for the work that you do to help expand apprenticeship. And we're getting ready to open the next segment. Kevin? Actually, there's a panel. We got a panel coming up next.
A round of applause for Russ Davis and Scott Yetley. Thank you so much. A wealth of information. One of the things that we learned in that last segment was there are several pathways into registered apprenticeship. And certainly the community college system embraces apprenticeship. That is the primary way to enter registered apprenticeship, either via the community college or your employer who networks with the community college. But I also can tell you that certain segments of our population, they aren't ready to enter registered apprenticeships. They aren't ready academically to pass the work keys test. They are not ready, and pre-apprenticeship is the mechanism in which we get people ready to participate in that registered apprenticeships. I want to thank Scott for the work that the MLEO is doing in the apprenticeship readiness certificate. That is going to be a game changer for Michigan. It's going to put some structure to pre-apprenticeship programs, let employer partners and representatives of community college understand what a quality pre-apprenticeship program is. Russ Davis talked about the letter from the Department of Labor that governs pre-apprenticeship, but I think that when Scott and his team are done, Michigan will be a lot better represented and in a lot better place to put our pre-apprenticeship on the map. I think that's going to work very well. Again, a round of applause for our Russ Davis and Scott Yetley. So we're going to move into the next and final segment of our discussion on apprenticeships today. For those of you who are in the room, lunch will be served shortly. We will not take a structured lunch break, but you'll be encouraged to take that break and have some great food from our partners at Curtin. It's 12:30. Lunch is coming at 12. So lunch, I'm told now lunch is at 12:30. Maybe it was me that wanted to eat a bit early. So our partners at the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity will facilitate the next session. Scott Yetley needs no introduction, but also with Scott is some panelists that are online. I would encourage you and kind of let you know that your session's coming up. Introduce to you, present to you, introduce Callan Eschlenberg from the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you everyone for joining here and virtually. And thank you for Kirtland for hosting us, as everybody said. A lot of tough panels to follow, but excited to be here and excited to have our panel. So I'm going to pull up a presentation. I might need your help. Sorry. Yep. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right, a few slides actually follows off of some of what Scott said. Oh, is there a, should I just speak into this one?
Green lights on.
Okay. Yep. All right. Sure. All right, so following some of what Scott said about some of the investments and initiatives at the state, one of those is what we call SAE 2020, or the State Apprenticeship Expansion Initiative. So it is one of the initiatives, actually two initiatives from the U.S. Department of Labor. This slide you can see here, it's what we call MyRAIN, the Michigan Registered Apprenticeship Innovation Network, and then MyYARN, the Michigan Youth Apprenticeship Readiness Network. So two separate funding streams from U.S. Department of Labor, kind of in one initiative. So in all total, that's over 14 million in USDOL funding, helps fill thousands of registered apprenticeship openings in high skill, high wage, in demand careers. I think Scott mentioned actually over 5,230 registered apprentices will be participating in this program. And just over 1,000 of those will be youth apprentices, which is 16 to 24. So quite a bit of work over the next few years, but we have some great partners doing that with us. Quick outline, we'll do a little bit of a overview of that program, but really the heart of this is talking with our partners, the ones actually doing this work. I want to get a chance for you to hear from them. So first and foremost, I think almost everybody here probably knows what registered apprenticeship is. We talked a lot about it already. I know Russ mentioned 2,000 hours minimum on the job, 144 hours minimum related instruction. We heard about rewards for skills gains, increases along the way, that national occupational credential, and of course, the employer involvement first and foremost. So non-registered programs, we're not talking about those. These are all registered. Non-registered may or may not include any of those, but all of our programs will include all of those core components. So again, following a lot of what Scott mentioned, Scott really talked about the Michigan Apprenticeship Advisory Board and that state level innovation, the overall guidance, direction, innovation strategy. We're going to dive a little bit more into the actual implementation. So that's happening at our Regional Implementation Consortia, or RICs as we call them. So these RICs are composed of employers and organized labor, Office of Apprenticeship ATRs, Russ and his team, secondary and post-secondary educational partners, Michigan Works agencies. Each RIC includes at least one MWA and their apprenticeship success coordinators, vocational rehab organizations, and then others, community organizations, many employers, a lot of different regional and local organizations. So in this slide, you can actually see we have 12 RICs that are all across the state. All total, this will give us just under 3,720 participants, registered apprentices over the next few years. You can see a breakdown of each one of those. So a lot of folks being impacted by this work, a lot of different organizations and a lot of areas across the state. Today with us, we actually have 4 individuals from these RICs. First is AFL-CIO Michigan Workforce Development Institute, Michigan Works Region 7B and their partners at Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works, Oakland County Workforce Development / Oakland County Michigan Works, and Upper Peninsula Michigan Works. So we actually have individuals from each organization. I'm going to ask them to give a quick overview of their work. And we're going to start off with Ms. Cheryl Sanford, the CEO of WDI. And I think if I can have them, oh, there we go. Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm very, very pleased to be here today. We're getting to know each other really well doing, this is I think our 3rd or 4th presentation. So it's good to see everyone again. We, as Callan said, we are part of the SAE grant, and our RIC is the Access to Apprenticeship RIC. We focus on the building trades, and we've partnered with building trades partners throughout the state, along with workforce development, community-based organizations, with the focus on increasing access to apprenticeship for underrepresented populations, females, minorities, youth, and veterans. And it's really based on a lot of the work that we've done with apprenticeship readiness training in the Detroit area and also in Kalamazoo with a program called Access for All. So we kind of use that as the model for developing our RIC and our partnership, and also focusing on populations that historically have been left out of apprenticeship opportunities. So helping people understand, first of all, what apprenticeship means, how it's beneficial, and also helping them acquire the skills necessary to be successful in an apprenticeship program.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And I don't have the slides up because I want to make sure everybody can see you. It's a little bit new format. We've actually either done, well, we've never done in person, we've done virtual, first hybrid. So we'll go next with Natasha, Region 7B.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. We are, even though we've not met in person once, I think as a panel, we are getting used to being together on virtual. And so thank you for having us. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Michigan Works Region 7B, and we partnered with Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works, and we really wanted to do this under the umbrella of our My Career Quest. We worked together on a My Career Quest event, and we thought this was a great way to incorporate apprenticeships into that event and to educate students about that. So I wasn't on the first session, but I heard a little bit mentioned about My Career Quest and what that is. But if you're not familiar, it is really a hands-on event for students to experience careers divided into different sectors. And so we took that and decided that we wanted to really target youth and CTE alignment with apprenticeships. And so I know that Jenny Gino is here on this call, and she's one of our partners, and really looking to align CTE programs, various CTE programs with registered apprenticeships that are either existing in our area, which we're working at increasing that as well, or ones that have maybe processes that are already out there and doing some groundwork before we have those individual registered apprenticeship programs with our employers. And so we're working with, I believe it is 7 different CTE programs to do that, which is a lot of work. But through that, we want to also include that MARC credential. And so we're excited to see what the state does with that, and so that we can incorporate that into those CTE programs. So they will come out with whatever credentials are required for, or that they can get with the CTE programs and what is in the registered apprenticeship programs, as well as that MARC credential. So excited to see that work coming forward in our state. The other part of this is to really target underrepresented populations. And so we're working with our, specifically our offender success program, is we've made some inroads there. We met with Vocational Village not too long ago to see how we could help them with aligning apprenticeships and serving returning citizens. And so exciting work going on that way. It really, this great opportunity comes at a great time, I think, for our state, because there's a talent shortage, and registered apprenticeship is a really great way to grow your own and to look at that talent pipeline from really beginning to end. We tend to look at it at the very end, where we want to hire people that have that experience, but we know that that talent isn't there right now. So really looking at that talent pipeline from K-12 all the way to where we're used to looking at it is right at where we want to hire people with that experience and get them started right away. And registered apprenticeship is a great way to do that. And so excited for this grant opportunity. It's a great way to educate employers in the area about registered apprenticeships, and that really it's not just for trades. It is for all sorts of different occupations and career pathways. So exciting opportunities. We're thankful for the opportunity to be a part of it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Natasha. Next, I think we'll ask Liz Rivard-Weston, Oakland County, Michigan Works.
Hi, thanks for having me. Much like Cheryl and Natasha shared, the Oakland County, Michigan Works, Oakland County Workforce Development SAE grant is focusing on underrepresented populations as well. So we have a targeted effort to focus on youth, veterans, and then all other underrepresented populations as well. So when we submitted our proposal for that, that was really the highlight. We're also making a concerted effort to break into new industry sectors. Traditionally, we do look at healthcare, IT, construction, and advanced manufacturing, but we are, like I said, we're really looking to explore new occupations and new companies in that space as well. And really our driving force behind this is our RIC. So in late 2020, Oakland County, Michigan Works set up what we call the Oakland County Apprenticeship Task Force. And then when this RFP came out, there was a component that we were to have a regional implementation consortium. So it just worked out perfectly that our OCAT, as we call it, fit the definition of the RIC. So we kind of merged the ideas, and OCAT continued as our RIC. So something else that we've done is we have our RIC act as kind of the overarching and umbrella oversight committee. And then we have 4 subcommittees under that. So one subcommittee focuses on youth, one focuses on veterans, one focuses on underrepresented populations, and then the other looks at the new industry sectors and the MARC, that pre-apprenticeship certification piece. So, we really wanted to bring in the industry experts or, the experts from organizations that serve those underrepresented populations to make sure that our marketing efforts are tight and really directed towards, the areas that we're looking to reach. So far out of that, we've put together a new marketing campaign called Advantage Apprenticeship. And just last week, we put out a press release and over 60 companies have reached out. So we're really excited that the guidance from, our newly formed subcommittees has already really helped us, gain better reach. So in addition to, reaching these new areas, we're also implementing a training reimbursement for either that related technical instruction or the on-the-job learning piece of the registered apprenticeship programs. And we also have some other goals as well. So Oakland County's has it's our registered apprenticeship guide. I couldn't tell you what edition it's in, but many editions later. So one of our goals for this grant is to put out a new edition, making sure that we capture some of the newer activities in apprenticeship, also putting on specific events, one of which is a veterans focused event. And we're actually tackling that next week during National Apprenticeship Week. So we're having an event called Veterans Plus Apprenticeships is the Perfect Equation, and other things like that. So, we're really excited to really expand what Oakland County Michigan Works has historically been able to do in the apprenticeship space. And this grant has already opened up many doors for us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Liz. And then last, only because UP is always the last letter to start, but Holly Peoples from UP Michigan Works.
Thanks for having me, everybody. I'm Holly Peoples. I'm the Director of Business Services here at Upper Peninsula Michigan Works. I'm really pleased to be here as a part of this panel. The work that we're doing through this grant is all very new and very exciting for us here in our region, as I think a lot of it is with other regions. When we put our grant together, our targeted expansion industry sectors were childcare, healthcare, education, IT and cybersecurity, and then this one very specific one called Alterations Taylor, because we have a female-owned company in Marquette who has a vision to develop a journey worker Alterations Taylor hub in the Upper Peninsula. So she's been kind of a driving force around some of our thinking throughout this process. And we have some really great partners who have, for many, many years, sat on our SEAC, which is also our RIC. And they really helped us kind of have some evolution in our thinking and what the strategies that we wanted to try to go after around apprenticeship. And one of those people, his name is Brian Sarvello. He's a longtime CTE director and thought leader in the region around youth and work-based learning opportunities and options multiplication for young people in the region. And about 5 years ago, he had attended a professional development opportunity where there was a presentation by an organization called CareerWise Colorado. Some of you may be familiar with CareerWise. They've expanded into many areas now in the country, one of which is Elkhart, Indiana. They're in Washington, D.C. and a couple areas of New York, and of course continue to do their work in Colorado. And they're on a mission to start and grow a movement of high school youth apprenticeship. Now, some of the ones that they work with are registered and some of the ones that they work with are non-registered. Our goal is for all of our youth to enter registered apprenticeship opportunities. And so we're working really hard right now with our ATR and companies across the region in those industry sectors that I mentioned to be registering apprenticeship opportunities, where we have become an intermediary. We've successfully completely registered 3 companies who are childcare providers in their early childhood educator occupation. And so we have some apprentices starting in those opportunities right now. So far, none of them are high school youth. But the goal is, of course, as we register these different opportunities, to, as often as possible, have the companies agree and be interested and excited to place youth in those opportunities. What we've found is that our traditional longtime partners are really the ones who are really gung-ho about the kids. We have working with a number of different, well, what we consider larger manufacturers in our region, found that they have had successful work-based learning placements for many, many years with high school kids, and they're really happy to take those placements and formalize them into registered apprenticeship. It seems that those industry sectors, you know, they kind of get it. They know what apprenticeship is. They know what apprenticeship means. They know how important apprenticeship can be to their companies. And what we found is, you know, we talk about, well, we have these incentive dollars that we can help you with to offset the costs. And those are not the things that really that we have heard are really what's driving the interest. The interest is we're the intermediary. So we're going to take some of that tracking and data entry and the stuff that they don't want to do off of their plate. But the big thing that we're hearing recently, and somebody else, I think it was Natasha, talked about the talent shortage, is they need to institutionalize passing along institutional knowledge from their highly skilled workforce to new entrants and work and find brand new ways to be able to keep those people in those jobs and grow them along a career path. And apprenticeship seems to be what they consider a good solution to that. And so we're having some really good conversations with a variety of companies. Now, moving some of the non-traditional ones along has been taking a little longer, but we're very close to having another medical assistant apprenticeship registered. And we're looking at another handful of medical assistant apprenticeships. We're pretty close on a handful of different cybersecurity and IT registered apprenticeships. So our thought right now is we're just kind of a locomotive chugging along kind of slowly right now, but as we get going a little bit faster, hopefully we'll see just a big increase and a lot of growth in the area, and that's our goal. And like a couple other people mentioned, we're really interested in the MARC. Our partner Brian Sarvello is on the committee on the MOB who's looking at that, and we've developed some thoughts for him to bring forward, looking at the career-wise apprenticeship readiness model, our Jobs for Michigan graduates, overall readiness model, and then some information that we've gathered in having some conversation with Kalamazoo Public Schools and some of the readiness things that they're working on. So we're feeling good, we're moving forward, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No, and thank you all for that great overview. I do want to remind everybody well, in the audience, I guess you can raise your hand or ask questions, but if you're online, virtual, you go ahead and type any questions you have in the chat, and we'll get to those in a little bit. I do have a few questions. We'll dive in a little bit more with each of our panelists, but I want to start with Liz, something you mentioned, you know, underrepresented populations and some of the targeted populations, with tomorrow being Veterans Day. You mentioned vets and vets families. Can you talk a little bit about your work trying to engage that population, any challenges or barriers you've had, and then of course any promising practices or success stories that other folks may be able to build off of?
Great question. So I hate to say this, Oakland County is kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to veterans, because the majority of the veterans living in the county are Vietnam era vets, so many of which are not looking for employment opportunities. So typically we do struggle in that area, but I think the promising approach is having that veterans focused subcommittee. Overall, you know, the county is really interested in attracting new residents, new talent to the county. So, you know, recently separated veterans are definitely part of that effort. So I think through the guidance of the Veterans Focus Subcommittee and, the event that we're having next week that focuses on, the value that veterans bring to the workforce and obviously the value that apprenticeships bring to companies, I hope that also inspires. I kind of seeing it as a build it, they will come. And I'm hoping, I'm really hopeful that the work that we're putting in right now will have a good payoff in that space in the long run.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Kind of continuing that trend or that question, Natasha, you mentioned some specific populations that your RIC is targeting as well. I know you mentioned returning citizens. That's been something that I think a lot of folks have talked about. I think there's been some panels previously at other MEATA sessions. But could you talk about your work in that area as well?
Sure. We are just really exploring the opportunity to work with our offender success program and returning citizens when it comes to apprenticeships. So we were able to have a conversation with the vocational village, which is located in Southern Michigan, and they really train returning citizens with skills so that way when they graduate from there, they have credentials. And we had a lengthy conversation about making sure that those align with what employers are looking for in apprenticeships so that that could potentially be a talent pool for employers going forward, whether it be in the trades with unions, whether it be maybe some non-traditional apprenticeships that they're looking at. So we're excited for that partnership with them. We haven't gotten too far with that. We just had one initial meeting, but they're going to send us some of their credentials and the things that their curriculum, and then we're going to work with them to try to align that to some of our RIC members and the registered apprenticeship programs that we have in our area.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Cheryl, a question for you. And I know we've had a lot of the previous sessions talk about apprenticeship readiness and the MARC, Michigan Apprenticeship Readiness Certificate in particular. Not to out you here, but Cheryl is on the subcommittee for the MARC and one of our great partners helping to develop that. But can you talk a little bit about, if you'd like, your work on the subcommittee, but also, as kind of experts in apprenticeship readiness space, and Jenny in a previous panel talked about expanding the access for all into Saginaw. Could you just talk about the importance of the apprenticeship readiness and kind of your work and success in that area? Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry. We see apprenticeship readiness as such a critical component to help particularly underrepresented populations take advantage of apprenticeship opportunities. We started with the Access for All program in the city of Detroit because all the building projects that were going on in the city around 7-8 years ago, and there was a concern even then as these projects were starting to come online that residents in the city would be left behind, that they would not be able to take advantage of those opportunities because there was very little awareness of apprenticeships, understanding what that is, what the benefits are, and then how do you even start? There are 20+ building trades, which is our focus for Access for All. And they all have different entrance requirements, different testing. It's very difficult to know where to start. So that's one of the things that apprenticeship readiness programs, I think, provide, just that understanding of the world of apprenticeship and then a connection to the industry. One of the other things that was really important for us was to have industry at the table helping us to develop the program in the very beginning. Because if you're not meeting the need of the end user, which is in this case, it's the apprenticeship school and or the employer, then your training it's just a really expensive training program. If it doesn't lead to outcomes, if you don't have input from that end user to help develop the program. So that's been really critical for us in developing this program and being able to replicate it in other areas, because we do have the relationships with the industry. So that's been really important for us. And it also, I think, as we work on the mark, because we had them at the table at the beginning, helping us with everything from outreach and recruitment to the curriculum, to the outcomes, the certifications that we need. We're using that same process to determine what the mark needs to look like, because again, it has to have value to the industry we're serving. And if we have people complete these training programs, whatever credential they get should mean something when they, if they want to go into a daycare apprenticeship, or healthcare, or the building trades, or advanced manufacturing, whatever industry they're going into, we should be able to provide them with the training and a credential that actually means something. So, when they go to an employer, or they are going through the entrance process for an apprenticeship, and they come with that state of Michigan mark, that has standing in the industry. And it means that the training has value. So that's what we're working towards on the subcommittee. And it's been exciting to hear what everyone else is doing. We sort of have a union-based credential that we use from the North America Building Trades Union. But looking at how do we, that's just one industry. And we're looking at how do we do that across all of the RICs that we're working with and across all industries, and really develop something that's meaningful.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Holly, a question for you, and actually, again, kind of flows off of something you mentioned, but actually something earlier that Howard, one of our earlier panelists, mentioned. I think, Holly, you mentioned, as folks retire and kind of passing that knowledge. I think this morning we heard it was called the silver tsunami. So can you talk a little bit about, what your RIC and your organization is doing with that, but also I think you mentioned, your role as an intermediary and kind of helping to facilitate some of the administrative function so that folks, the employers can focus on their work and that training. Can you talk a little bit about your role on that?
Sure. I hadn't heard that silver tsunami before, but that's a good way to put this. I think we've all in this industry, workforce development, been hearing about and talking about the baby boomer retirement cliff since, I'm going to say 2008, we started worrying about that, right? And then it has had a lot of different kind of dynamics over the years that have kept people in their jobs probably a little bit longer than they had planned, for their lives. And now we are seeing that we are at that point now where a lot of those people are retiring. And here, and I think this is probably true across most of Michigan, our population is aging and shrinking. And those are dynamics that are a little bit frightening for us. And we're trying to think here, outside of all the boxes we've ever heard of before, what all can we do and what all can we work with these companies to do to mitigate some of those kinds of issues. And we're thinking a lot about apprenticeship as one of those major solutions. And I think that the companies that we're talking to are coming along with us along that track. Another thing that we're hoping to do in our area, this is a little bit outside of this conversation, but we're hoping to implement the talent pipeline management strategy in our manufacturing and healthcare sectors. And hopefully those tools will also help us to mitigate some of the demographic related challenges that we're facing in our area in terms of skills gaps and talent shortages and, worker pipeline planning. We're also looking at, and we've just recently trained our full staff here at Michigan Works on the Bridges Out of Poverty model. We feel like if we can implement some better tools to address generational, situational, overall poverty-related issues, that we can impact in a positive way labor force participation rates in our communities and also retention, worker retention in companies. We feel like that in our rural and remote areas, which we have some pockets where employers are located. You know, I think of Connor Sports Flooring in Amasa. You know, for any of you probably on this call, and even for me, they are out in the middle of nowhere. And they need a lot of people to come to work there. And there's a lot of people that, you know, have a hard time getting there because their car breaks down all the time and all those kinds of things. And we're just trying to think through, in addition to registered apprenticeship and youth opportunities, what else can we do to help all of our companies throughout our region to be prepared for the future and stay here?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Holly. I think obviously COVID-19, the pandemic's had a pretty huge impact. Also with this, right, are changing to kind of hybrid formats. I know some of the previous conferences have been virtual only. And actually, I was going to say, Holly, I think a lot of people might find that the alteration and tailoring might come in handy. I certainly find my dress clothes are a little bit altered, or maybe but can you each talk a little bit about you know, how this has changed your work in workforce development, but especially, you know, apprenticeship expansion, but also you know, any not positives, but promising practices that have come out of this that you see continuing into the future? And same question for everybody, but does anybody want to start?
I'll start really quickly, Callan. So our hope with our career-wise work is that it takes off like a rocket, and that we and the work that we're doing around high school youth apprenticeships can be a model that can be replicated throughout the state of Michigan. I know it's a lofty goal, but we think it's worth it. We think that having young people enter apprenticeships at a point in their life when they are making some choices, and we find in our experience here that sometimes those choices are not the best choices because they feel like their options are limited, or they don't understand all their options, that a registered apprenticeship opportunity can be. And we keep using this word options multiplier because we don't feel like entering a registered apprenticeship while you're still in high school means that you're not going to go to college. As a matter of fact, it could mean exactly the opposite thing. And we want everybody to have all those options and be well prepared to enter the workforce, join the middle class, and stay here in the UP.
Thank you.
I can go next, Callan. I think for my role, so I don't think I said this, I'm the apprenticeship success coordinator for Oakland County Michigan Works. So I think in my role, the implementation of more virtual meetings has actually allowed me to do more with less time, or not less time, but in the amount of time that, you know, that we have allotted for us to do our work. So in a way, I'm glad that virtual meetings are now more accepted because, like I said, I can meet with more companies. It's something that's, I mean, it does impact apprenticeship, but it isn't directly related to it. But we converted our job seeker workshops to all virtual, and, you know, the numbers in which we were able to serve in that way have also gone up. So that's something that we keep saying, that, you know, as we emerge from the pandemic, that is something we're going to keep, is, you know, figuring out how can we continue to provide services virtually and also in person for those who need. But, you know, we found that, you know, some folks have, you know, folks who have barriers to employment also have barriers getting to our Oakland County Michigan Works offices, or any Michigan Works office. So, you know, somebody can use their smartphone to learn how to do a virtual interview versus, you know, catching 3 buses. And we're lucky enough to have a bus system, but I know there's other areas of the state who don't even have that resource. So, you know, we're I don't want to say grateful, right? Because there's so many bad things that happened from the pandemic, but, you know, the opportunity to rethink how we provide our services to both job seekers and employers, and to weave in a virtual option that works for those individuals has really helped us expand what we can do for our customers.
Excellent, thank you.
I agree with Liz. I think we had 2 classes in session when the pandemic hit, and we had to pivot very quickly and move to an online platform. And it was it was a bit of a struggle for the students, but the whole thing was a struggle, dealing with COVID and the virtual platform. But it has allowed us in some case, first of all, it has allowed us to continue training during the pandemic, with very limited in-person sessions on the weekend. And it actually, as we expand around the state, as Liz said, there's some benefits to being able to deliver content virtually. So instead of having multiple instructors in different areas of the state, we have one instructor doing blueprint, and he can do blueprint, for 4 different classes in 4 different areas at the same time. So there are some things that we've learned to use technology to make us more effective in delivering content. And, as we move back into a completely in-person phase, we'll address that. But we have discovered, and in some ways it helped with retention. So if people are having transportation issues, daycare issues, virtual, I think was a big help for them. A little bit of getting used to, but in some ways it mitigated other problems that we normally have with attendance, because they only had to worry about coming to class in person on Saturdays. So we will probably continue with a lot of the virtual content that we've developed over the last year and a half.
I want to echo what everybody else has said on the panel, but one of the things that I don't think that has been mentioned is really the virtual platform has allowed it to become easier for us to meet with USDOL and to have employers connect with them. And so I'm super thankful to those that are from USDOL that are at the MEATA conference or on the call, that you have made that accommodation and have been able to meet employers. We could have 3 meetings with employers in one day with USDOL. We couldn't have done that before. And so it has made it easier for our employers and removed another barrier for them to get those apprenticeships approved through USDOL. And so I'm really hoping that will stick around, even though I would love to see you all in person, maybe for those site visits, right? But at least for that approval process, it really has become, it's made it even easier than it already was to get a registered apprenticeship program off the ground.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that, since our person is in Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. No, great points. And thank you so much. I don't see any questions on the chat. So if you do, sorry, Howard, yeah.
I just have one question. Are there any strategies being contemplated or currently employed to drive traffic to apprenticeship opportunities that are available through our Michigan Works offices? Just connecting the pipeline at the other end.
So I'll go first. National Apprenticeship Week is next week. So I'm sure we all have some strategies that we're putting into place to draw people to Michigan Works for those opportunities. So one of the things that we were able to do with some apprenticeship money, actually from a different apprenticeship grant, was we created some really great videos, because we're on this virtual platform, right? So, and we're not able to get into schools and do big in-person events. Some really great videos that are targeted for employers that draws them back to the Michigan Works for apprenticeship help. The other is geared towards K-12, and the other is geared towards job seekers. And so we'll have some, we're going to blast social media with smaller video vignettes of what those are. But the really exciting part of that is it's not regurgitating a lot of information back, which we have some really great facts that we can do that with, and those are really helpful. But we were able to get local employers that have local apprenticeships, local apprentices, and they're all in the video, and they tell it in their own words, their own language about apprenticeships. And so we're super excited about that, because people will recognize people in those videos and say, oh, I didn't know that that was an apprenticeship. Or like we have Rise Autism Center, and that's a really a non-traditional apprenticeship. And so we have some traditional ones in there, some non-traditional ones. So I'm really excited about that. And we're going to push that all out for Apprenticeship Week. We have apprenticeship kits going out to schools, to the CTE programs and students, just to get the word apprenticeship out there, almost like an awareness campaign, so that we can come back and follow up with some targeted apprenticeship conversations with people, with students, with job seekers, and with employers. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot, and I'm sure that there'll be other super great ideas that the panel will put out as well, but really excited about Apprenticeship Week, except for Monday, because in Northern Michigan, all the schools are closed because it is Deer Day and it's a holiday, right? I know that nationally it's not a holiday, but up north it is. So we're going to start ours on the 16th at the schools, but we will be putting it out there on the 15th because everybody will be on Facebook looking for people's bucks. So we're hoping to get it out there then too.
I do know, I think Russ has been single-handedly trying to convince the national office to change National Apprenticeship Week to not coincide with Deer Day, but we'll keep pushing. But yeah, any other responses from the panel?
Yeah, I can build off of what Natasha's saying. Since the pandemic, we have not held a mic request, but prior to COVID-19, the Oakland County partnered with the Southeast Michigan region to host a huge My Career Quest. So that's a great way to get youth, connected to all sorts of opportunities, many of which are apprenticeable. And then also Manufacturing Day. Typically, Manufacturing Day, I think, is the first Friday in October. I hope I'm right. Good, I'm seeing a nod. Typically, we would do that in person, but the past 2 years, we've been able to offer that virtually. So similar to what Natasha was saying, we were able to create some video tours and have some live interaction Q&A. But those videos are now, I mean, think about it. I'm all about accessibility. So, previously, the only people who could gain that information is the kids who showed up in person, but now, we have a permanent record of it. So now we have the video that's posted to our website. So even if folks weren't able to attend on Manufacturing Day, they can still find their way over to our website and, gain some of the information that was shared that day. And we've also partnered with Oakland Schools and Oakland Community College to host what's called the Apprenticeship Showcase, which is not a job fair. It's an opportunity for companies with apprenticeship programs to have a table, or we did do it virtually this year, so a virtual table where community members, not just youth, but community members can come and connect with the companies. So some of the companies might have openings in their apprenticeship programs, but others might not. But the whole goal is to expand exposure to what sort of occupations are apprenticeable, what might someone need to do in order to get maybe a baseline of skills to enter an apprenticeship program such as that. So we do have some tried and true events to make those connections. But something I want to point out that we've really struggled with is the balance. Because if we don't have if we're not aware of or have an apprenticeship opportunity to plug a job seeker or an apprenticeship seeker into, we could have a really big pool of excited folks that want to be an apprentice, but we don't have anywhere to put them. So it's for us, and I'm seeing some other nods, so I'm guessing this is across the board, but we really try to be mindful of our promotion to make sure that if we're getting candidates excited about it, that there's also opportunities, to connect them with as well. But we just really try to be mindful of that balance.
Thanks, Liz. I just to kind of take a little bit of a different angle on that too, Howard. We have seen, we work really closely with some of the trades up here with the JATCs that hire in a little bit larger numbers typically. Some of them are onesie, twosie a year, and some of them are larger numbers. And we've seen a precipitous drop off in numbers of applicants to all of those jobs. And it's the same with any other type of business that's looking to hire people. It's just been, just a down and to the left arrow. I can remember back in the early 2000s when we started working with the paper mill in Escanaba, and we would get 2,000 people that would apply for those jobs, easily. And now it'll be 200. And so it's just one of those kind of trends that's a, you know, disturbing trend. And what we've been encouraging some of our partners to do, and up here, we're really lucky because we have the Upper Peninsula Construction Council. Now, Mike Smith is running that. It was formerly Tony Rataski's entity who helps with a lot of this, but we're really encouraging those training managers in those JATCs and other people to be in school. You know, those CTE classes are in the morning and then in the afternoon, and it's like we need them to get in there, get to know those kids, build a relationship with those kids, find out if those kids are really interested. If they are, what do their parents think? Are there conversations we can have that can move those kinds of opportunities forward? And we're always happy to work with our trades partners to make those connections into the school systems so you can actually get to know some of those young people and try to cultivate them as, you know, potential future apprentices in your trades.
Can I hop back in? You know, the labor shortage or the drop in workforce participation's come up quite a few times. And I think there are multiple factors that play into that, but something I want to highlight is the most recent stat I saw, which could be different today, is that over 200,000 women have dropped out of the workforce, and that's mostly related to childcare. Now, Holly talked about the apprenticeship activities she has in the childcare space. We're also looking at that, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. Folks might not be able to afford childcare, but then on the other side, the wages are relatively lower in childcare. So we're finding that childcare facilities are having trouble attracting folks. So, you know, we're really hoping, I'm encouraged to hear that other areas have had success in that, because in Oakland County, we are trying to set up a childcare apprenticeship program using an intermediary for that. So at this time, I don't have anything to share on that, but it's something that's really important. So it's kind of nice that we have a model that, you know, we've identified an issue, but we have a model like registered apprenticeship that we can plug in to try to find a viable solution to the workforce participation issue.
I agree with what everyone else has said about the struggles with recruitment. It's been a unique time, whether we are recruiting for the programs that we run, training programs, or employers. It has been a very unique time, and it requires us to be a little more creative. And we've done a lot with social media, marketing and recruitment, and that seems to be improving actually within the last couple of weeks. We're getting a lot more interest with people signing up through Facebook and Instagram and probably some other platforms that I don't use, but our marketing folks seem to they haven't figured out. So but it is a challenge. We're seeing things start to increase slowly, but I think people are really spending a lot more time looking at career options. Over the last year and a half, I think people are just not rushing back into traditional occupations anymore, and they're really looking at what do I really want to do? They're looking for career opportunities and not just jobs. And that's where I think we do have an opportunity with marketing and promoting apprenticeships as career pathways. And, you know, people who are saying, maybe I don't want to go back to doing what I was doing before. And I want to look for something a little bit different. I think there's an opportunity for us, and the more, you know, we have with marketing support. I know the state is looking at doing that as well. I think it really helps all of us if there's a concerted marketing effort at the state level to promote apprenticeships.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, and I think Scott mentioned before the marketing. I don't know if there's any, I don't really understand social media either, but I think I've heard TikTok, if maybe Scott and Russ do a TikTok together, we'll see. I think that would draw a lot of people in. But
My staff loves TikTok. All ages, they love TikTok. So go figure.
We're actually hiring a social media person specifically to help us, because none of us know how to use it, TikTok, to try to get the youth more involved. I mean, I know how to watch TikTok videos, but I have no idea what goes into making one. So hopefully our new social media person will help us engage with more youth. You know, right? Because we have to go where these job seekers, where these apprenticeship seekers are.
Exactly.
I just want to see the Scott and Russ video.
Excellent, excellent. It's a movement, right? I think we have a few more minutes. Any other questions, either on the chat or in the room? And while we wait for some other questions, if folks, you know, I think a lot of folks here are involved with your RICs and with your work, but if they're not, could you all just kind of do a real quick around the horn of how to get involved with your RIC if they aren't already? Oh yeah, let's start with Holly. I think you unmuted first. So.
upmichiganworks.org.
Perfect. Liz?
Easy enough. It probably would be best to email me. So I can put my email address in the chat, but I think it was also on the slide, Kellen, that you had up before you switched over to us.
Yeah, it's on the slide. Everybody's contact's on the slide as well.
Okay, good.
It's the slides after. So Cheryl, any other way to connect as well?
I would agree. You can email me with the information on the slide. That would be the best way.
Excellent. And last but not least, Natasha.
You can email me, or you can email us at apprenticeshipsformishworks4u.org.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in. Anything else in the room, or I guess.
Did you look in the chat?
Oh, yeah.
You have it open.
Yeah,
there.
I've got it open as well. I know we're between everyone and lunch, other than the folks virtually, sorry. But Kevin, I'll turn it back over to you, and thank you all again for joining us virtually and in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. This one? Okay.
MEATA members, thank you so much for attending the first ever virtual or hybrid conference. I want to do some thank yous before we break for the folks who are attending virtual. First, thank you so much for our host, Kirkland Community College, for hosting. Those of you here know that you have lunch spread that looks very delicious. The hosting has been outstanding. We really appreciate what you've done in putting this conference on. It has not been an easy task to put on a hybrid conference, really two conferences in one, for our folks online and our folks who are here in the room. So I want to thank Jake Howlett. Jake has been the IT guy here in the room. Many of you have seen Jake come to the podium, but he has controlled the IT in the room and online. Really appreciate what you've done today. I know that was probably more than you anticipated, but you stood up to the challenge, and really appreciate everything that you've done on behalf of all of the MEATA board of directors. Thank you so much, Jay. Likewise, our very own Bill Rell has been instrumental in setting up the website and the registration and the emails and everything like that. So thank you so much, Bill. To the MEATA board, the MEATA executive board, thank you so much for everything that you do. In particular, thank you, Cameron, and thank you, Ned. It has not been easy putting up with me. So thank you so much. Just that right there gets it done. I also want to, before we break, thank Dr. Quinn personally for everything that you've done in planning this. Your team has been outstanding. So thank you so much, Dr. Quinn. All of our panelists and people who participated both in person and online, thank you so much. In particular, thank you, Steve Long, for everything that you have done in the past for this organization and all of the stuff that we're going to ask you to do in the future. And we'll submit our list of demands short. Some housekeeping items. Those of you who may not have registered for the conference, we had a little snafu. We'll make sure that you are on our mailing list, that you receive all of the conference materials. And so for those of you who are online who have participated in the conference, please go to the MEATA website and register for the conference. That's going to do so much to make sure the administration of this works out. Also want to announce our next conference. MEATA, what we do is conferences, bring people together, talk about apprenticeships. Our fall conference, which we're having now, is usually a one-day conference, and our big conference in the spring. The spring conference of 2022 will be held the week before Memorial Day in Traverse City. I say the date will be shared as soon as we have all of the information. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in Traverse City, either virtually or in person. And I gotta say that these virtual conferences are here to stay. Also, the conference materials, all of the PowerPoints, agendas, and everything will be available to you as soon as we can get them uploaded. You can use the QR code here to access that and take you right to our website, or you can just go directly to our website, www.meata.org. Those conference materials will be there. For those of you who are getting continuing education credits or sketches, make sure you have filled out your application. Cameron Arbring is championing that. I think that we have all of the names, but make sure that your paperwork is done so that we can get those to you immediately. The MEATA Executive Board has open positions, and we need you. This is a call to service. We all love this organization, or at least I do. I love MEATA. I love what it stands for. The people who serve on our executive board, we all have daytime jobs, and we need help. So there's several positions that are available. You can contact me or any of our board members. Our contact information is on the website, again, www.meata.org. MEATA members, that concludes the 2021 hybrid conference. To our folks who are online, thank you so much for attending, and I'm being held now. Did I forget something?
The online, they're done.
Right. So for those who are participating online, thank you so much. Wish you could have been here with us. Just to let you know, we have a great lunch and a tour of this great facility in front of us. And I gotta let you know, this is my first time here at Kirtland. This is a beautiful campus. There's several, I'm told there's several new things going on, several new occupations that they're able to train for, but it is a beautiful campus. If you ever have the chance to visit this campus, please do. That said, MEATA members, thank you so much for attending the conference.
Stop share. Make it out. Perfect.